It catches on his Johnson.
If he's plank of the week, he's got a sizable plank.
Yeah. And apparently...
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon to you. We're just after 4 o'clock. Thank you to Ian Collins. Back in his rightful place tomorrow from 1. But drive time is on for Wednesday. What is it? The 25th of June. So much to talk about. So much you can get your teeth into this afternoon. As ever, let's set it up straight away. If you want to be on drive time on Talk, 3 ways of getting hold of us today. You can ring. Faith is here. Ryan still on his holidays and Jodie is in charge. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number you need. You can, of course, do that on the WhatsApp thingamajig and send a voice note. We like voice notes. Voice notes are good. 0344 499 1000. That means you don't have to come on the phone. You can text throughout the show, whatever your thoughts. We'll read them as many as we can. 87222. Start your message always with the word talk. Loads of guests lined up. Loads in there. And the big story, I mean, there's sort of loads of big stories, aren't there? We'll continue with more about how these illegal migrants are taking us for a ride. That's Sun Exclusive yesterday, which was extraordinary. The response has been extraordinary. Channel migrants working illegally as takeaway delivery drivers, literally minutes when they get into this country. Somebody said to me just now, we were filming Plank of the Week. It's interesting, isn't it? We can process illegal migrants, or rather these companies can. They can be processed and get a job within 10 minutes. But we can't process whether they should be in this bloody country or not. And Deliveroo and Just Eats and Uber Eats and all those big five, don't tell me that you're able to pay people £1,000 a week in cash and not know about it. I'll tell you what Mike and I were just talking about. He'll be here in a bit, Mike Graeme as well. Is there a middleman? Is this deeper? I mean, if these big companies are not actually paying these workers, are they paying a middleman? Either way, the government should absolutely jump all over this. They should have, as we said it yesterday on the show, they should have put the doors into those illegal migrant hotels yesterday and dragged the people out, and they should have dragged those people, right? Dragged those people that run those companies to number 10 and said, I'm going to sanction your company financially in every which way I can. It is despicable. But you know why they don't do that, the British government? I'll tell you why. This is why. Oh, come on. What the hell? I'll do it again. Shall I tell you why they don't do it, the British government? This is why.
I don't know what the they're doing.
There you go. That's what we were trying to achieve, but as ever, there was a gap the size of standing next to a train. Shall we try it again? Let's see if it works. Do you know why the Labour government won't do anything about illegal migrants?
I don't know what the they're doing.
We don't either. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Also, more on this Labour revolt. This is quite seismic. A Labour revolt brewing on the backbenchers in the Labour Party. Up to 120 are saying that they will vote against the government's welfare bill. They're planning to cut $5 billion from the welfare benefit. It needs to be done. It's completely bloated. It's sort of been met with real anger by many Labour MPs, backed by Sir Sadiq Khan, of course. There are real fears that it could be sunk. Overnight, Kemi Badenoch said, I'll offer Conservative support on several conditions. What does it say? That a Labour government, within 11 months of winning a 170-plus majority, might need the Tory opposition to get through one of its flagship policies. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. Or Richard Tice, you might have seen in the paper and in the news, went to visit Lucy Connolly, that lady who is languishing in jail 31 months for some hurty words. Not words that we condone here on Talk about those Stockport riots. But I have to say this. The imbalance between Lucy Connolly's sentence and what other people seem to get away with, paedophiles, illegal migrants and all sorts of people, you know, people who get to stay in this country by using ridiculous laws, is palpable. And fair play to Richard Tice for highlighting that. They were laughed at in the Commons when they raised this, but I think it's absolutely right. There is two-tier justice in this country and it needs looking at. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's start with a Tory MP, one of only 121. He's a regular Conservative for Bethl in Alderness. Graeme Stuart, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jeremy. And you?
At least you answered.
Full of animated fury, quite rightly.
Well, at least you answered me. We'll try and push that button with Donald Trump as a bit of fun. It doesn't work. Graeme, where do I start? Let's start with that Sun expose from yesterday because it's not going away. The spotlight's on a new crackdown. Channel migrants. I mean, honestly, channel migrants working illegally as takeaway drivers, managing to get the jobs within minutes of arriving in this country, earning upwards of £1,000 a week. Subletting accounts, moving it around. The Home Office is now targeting hotspots and seizing e-bikes. I don't understand, and I never have understood. I mean, everybody says to me, oh, the Home Office isn't fit for purpose. This is such a great piece of journalism, but the Home Office must have known about this. They must have known that this was going on. Where are the Home Office or Immigration or Border Control? Why is this being allowed to, frankly, I don't want to use the wrong word, take the PISS out of the British people still further, Graeme?
Well, you're absolutely right. And as the journalist showed, it's right outside the places where people have been put. So not only are we paying for them to be put there, they're actually parking their Deliveroo bikes outside the door. So it's absolutely obvious to anyone with eyes to see that it's being abused. So it's just ridiculous. And so smash the gangs, the big promise a year ago. And you've got to remember, it is pretty much a year now since Labour came to power. And instead of smashing the gangs, what they've done is cancelled Rwanda, got rid of the only disincentive we had, and they're coming over, as your pictures are showing, by the thousand. Record numbers. Up, is it 30 or is it 40% more than the previous year? So just when we had a solution to bring it down, Labour moved in the opposite direction. And when people get here, as you say, the process within minutes, they can go riding around London and elsewhere with no lights on, putting every pedestrian at risk, while working for these big tech giants who, like the Home Office, seem to see no evil, hear no evil, and meanwhile, I'm going to
go further. I don't believe that companies as big as that don't know. I mean, there's some Labour minister of no name said, I'm going to meet the food delivery firms over the reports of this in the next week or so. They should have been dragged to Downing Street yesterday and told in no uncertain terms that they are responsible. They should have been fined or sanctioned. The doors should have gone into those migrant hotels on television and I'm not trying to say the wrong thing here, but quite rightly, after those Stockport riots, Keir Starmer, his militia were on the streets, the judges were in their chambers, and the prisons were suddenly free, and everybody, quite rightly, not all of them, not Lucy Connolly for God's sake, was thrown in jail within 24 hours. The reason this government will not do this to illegal migrants is because they are absolutely terrified about racial tension. They're terrified about their idea of, multiculturalism, and most of all, and people in this country believe this, and this is why I think it's frightening, is that they seem to be more interested in doing the right thing from a human rights point of view than they do from doing right for the British people. But I will say this every afternoon until they drag me off, Gray. This is really beginning to not even resonate. The British people have had enough. You're not going to tell me the Tories didn't know this was going on. You've only been out of power 11 months. This must have been going on, these illegal drivers.
Yeah, well, they absolutely should be cracked down on. That's why we were doing every step we possibly could, including Rwanda, to stop it happening. That's why when James Cleverly was the Home Secretary, we saw a significant reduction in the numbers. But stopping this sort of thing is just essential, because the trouble with this current Prime Minister, and that's what your listeners and viewers will think, he's not on your side.
No. Uh-oh. Oh, it's really going well. He's now.
And he's
frozen.
not on Britain's side. He's given away sovereign territory we've got, and then the next time he goes in, it turns out he's paid £30 billion to rent it back, something which we already own. That's Chagos. And then you've got no effort to do this. And ministers, it's so infuriating. You get very cross, Jeremy. We should try being a member of Parliament sitting opposite. And they say, oh, no politicians answer straight questions. Well, I don't think that's true. I'm a minister. I should go back and have a look back at my answers. I would try and answer the question. Sometimes you avoid the most difficult ones. They never answer any question. And so you can't pin them down, and they're sitting there in la-la land. The good news, Jeremy, which I doubt you're going to come to, is the fact that the people behind them, not us on the opposite side, the people behind them have had enough. I've just had Labour MP after Labour MP talking to me today, saying they've had it. They were marched up the hill on the winter fuel payment, which they thought was wrong. As a lady just said to me now, she said, I told them, I wrote to Rachel Reeves, she said privately, saying, we should set a figure like 15 or 20,000. Ignored. So and then they U-turn on it. And here they are selling out the country on Chagos, selling out the country on our borders. And everywhere he goes, Keir Starmer sells us out. And you may not have seen this over the weekend, Jeremy, but do you remember us talking about bioethanol? Because I have this big factory, the largest one in the country, that makes bioethanol.
Yeah, I do.
You stick it in petrol, reduces the CO2, it comes 1 million tonnes of wheat a year. It turns out that Johnny Reynolds, the business secretary, and his team of negotiators hadn't screwed up. They had done a balanced deal with America that helped us on steel, helped us on cars. It was a balanced deal. No mention of bioethanol. What the Times reported over the weekend, Donald Trump rang up Keir Starmer, said, oh, it's not a good enough deal. I want the whole UK bioethanol market, 1.4 billion litres. And what did Keir Starmer do? What he always does. He caved, because he's not on your side, he's not on Britain's side, and we gave away the whole thing for nothing at all in return.
So explain this to me then. Explain this to me. Explain this to me then. And you touched on the other main news story of the day, a major revolt brewing inside the Labour Party over Keir Starmer trying to push through this welfare benefits cut of $5 billion. It needs more than that. Over 120 Labour MPs, this is why I don't understand your leader, including the likes of Sadiq Khan, who cares, have vowed to sink the bill when it reaches the Commons next week. Overnight, on the way home, I read, Kemi Badenoch, head above the parapet, we'll support you to get this through because we believe in welfare benefit cuts if you follow or agree to these three things. I wouldn't be touching them with a barge pole. If the first chance for the government to fall on its backside, I wouldn't be helping them to get it through. I'd watch it absolutely destroy itself across the chamber. What's she thinking, man? I don't get it.
No, Jeremy. This is our world. In the politics here, she is quite right, because she is saying the conditions she set are you've got to commit to reducing the budget overall. This $5 billion is a knee-jerk cut because she suddenly was $5 billion short. It's not designed to get people back into work. It's callous and cruel. It's targeting. It's saying taking away from PIP recipients so people can wash themselves. It's got nothing to do with work, and the Labour Party behind us seen through it, but said, look, we will support it because we've got to take the tough decisions, we've got to cut it, but you must commit to lower the benefits bill overall.
Doesn't it make more sense to watch him...
You must commit not to put taxes up. That's the other thing she's
politically, doesn't it make more sense to send the message that this man is, holed, basically, offshore, and even his own party are going to vote down one of his flagship policies? That's what I thought when I read about Badenoch. I thought to myself, here's a chance to really screw him over.
Well, what you'll find with those conditions is he would have to commit not to put up taxes in the budget later this year. He isn't going to do that because they are going to put up taxes. Yeah. Do you remember Rachel Reeves at the budget?
Yeah.
I will not be back. I won't ask, talk, listeners and viewers for any more tax. Today, Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, challenged the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela, who looked strangely depressed today, didn't have an answer to any of his questions, and said, can you tell us as the Chancellor did, that you won't put up taxes. You will not be surprised to learn that she would not say that. They're going to put up taxes. So Kemi is quite rightly saying to them, wanting to protect ordinary working people, which Labour said they would do, but they're not. And she's saying, yeah, we want to see the overall benefit budget coming down and we want no more taxes. And that's not going to be fulfilled because Labour are helter-skelter heading towards shoving up taxes even more. So even more people end up on the dole queue, and those who
you have to
get less and less money in their pocket.
You have to. We're friends, but you have to understand. I mean, I read today that voters' trust in this government is at an all-time low. I turn this right back on your party. This shambles are in power because the British public lost complete trust in the Tory party. We can talk about illegal migrants. We can talk about taxation. When you left office, Graeme, with respect, it was the highest level of taxation in 70 years. I will say this to any politician of any party, and I want everybody to be involved, right? I'm not sure. You will tell me you do, and I'll say it to every politician. The depth of frustration, anger, resentment, and a desire to say, hold on a minute, I've lived my life correctly, I've done everything that I said I'd do, I'm at the back of the bleeding queue, and you know what? I'm not far right, but I've had enough of I've had enough of the way I'm being treated. I think that's palpable, mate, all across the country.
I agree with you. The point, though, is we had the COVID, which cost a fortune. Did you want to have the furlough to protect people? Did you want to make sure that we could develop support the AstraZeneca development, save more
Oh, he's gone. Is he gone? He keeps cutting out.
lives?
Oh, he's back.
Bills. We invested. We put more money. Are you there? We put more money in the NHS every year throughout the time. The truth is that taxes for ordinary working people were not at their highest level. We actually helped reduce it by lifting people out of tax. The rich were paying more than ever before, not the average ordinary working person. And when we left power, not only did we have 4 million more people in work, we'd grown faster than Germany, France, Italy, Japan over the 14 years. So much for 14 years of failure. We outcompeted all of them, and inflation was back on target. We were recovering from all those hits, and Labour came in, and they need to own it. So I know you want to blame me. I didn't fail to vote Conservative, Jeremy. You did. But what we've actually got is a government which has let us down. It promised hope, they promised change, they promised life would be better. They told us
I didn't vote for you last time because I felt like millions of people that the Conservative government had let me down. But that's me and that's you, and that's fine. Let's talk about something that an opposition, an MP from a different party has been talking about today. Deputy Reform UK leader Richard Tice went to visit Lucy Connolly in prison, has said that she was manhandled without provocation, handcuffed and stripped of privileges by prison officers. This is, of course, Lucy Connolly, the wife of a former Tory councillor. Her appeal against this ridiculous 31-month jail sentence for hurty words, which none of us condone, to me, is one of the most outrageous things that have happened in this country. I don't condone what she said. I would have thought that sort of some work in the local community, some sort of community service within the Muslim community would have been absolutely right for her to understand more before she sounds off. But we have paedophiles, Hugh Edwards, we have convicted criminals, we have foreign men who arrive in this country, we don't know who the hell they were. In fact, the own Labour government said last week that a large majority of them have been part of these grooming gangs, and yet Lucy Connolly is languishing in jail. I think one of the biggest miscarriages of justice, and to me, that is absolutely symptomatic of Sir Keir Starmer's United Kingdom, isn't it, Graeme?
It is. It's two-tier justice. That's what really gets people. People don't like double standards. If it was applied consistently, that'd be one thing, but it isn't. People who do far, far worse things and show no contrition end up with lower sentences than she does. As you said, she took it down shortly after she did it. And we've all, you in particular, Jeremy, would understand raging when you hear certain things because you're particularly good at it. And there she is. She's not a professional communicator and journalist like you. She made a mistake and she's banged up for all that time. And criminals who've hurt people get lower sentences. The British people don't like that. And the fact that it is symptomatic, if it was a one-off, that would be bad. But the fact is that it feels that, as you've talked about, lots of people, if they are politically on one side or another, then they get a different sentence. And it's just...
That's wrong, isn't it?
It's no way to run the country, and we need to fix it. And this government, it's not on the side of the people, it's not on the side of Britain.
The other thing I just want to touch upon, it's a particular hatred of mine. The BBC, the British Bloated Corporation, supposed to be our British, state, if you call it, wrong way to describe it, balanced broadcaster. They feel that I don't know if you've read this, they've told staff. Ms. Croxall this week changed. I don't know if you read about it. She changed sort of pregnant people to pregnant women. Yeah. I thought good luck to her, actually, fair play there. She was the one that they tried to get rid of for being too old, and she stuck two fingers up. Now they can't do anything to her at all, because if they get rid of her, it'll be complete outrage. But the BBC staff have been told in an email they must represent unpalatable and offensive views. Do the BBC understand that those unpalatable and offensive views are normal, intelligent, switched-on views of a majority of the people in this country, and that their left-wing bias is turning millions of people against what was once a proud national institution?
Well, I agree with you. You've got more sense out of it than I did. I read about it. I was none the wiser. What are they talking about? You must represent foul and offensive views. What a ridiculous thing to say to people. What you should do is represent a wide range of views in British society. Anyone who breaks the law, anyone who calls for, hate against others and calls for action that's going to hurt them, well, that's against the law. But everyone else is entitled to their view, and they shouldn't be described as extremist or unpleasant by some little bubble of left-wing people within the BBC. I mean, they are, very, very biased, and it's good you're there, Jeremy, to have a counterweight.
Well, I also need to do a little survey on you, if I can, GS. Yesterday, in the midst of this horrific situation with Palestine Action, which is this group that think it's okay to break into an armed base and destroy. Well, sabotage. I think they should have been jailed, but of course no. We'll probably find a lawyer that will defend them. Sabotage, £35 million worth of damage to two very important Voyager planes. Zara Sultana, do you know who she is? Have you met her?
I do know who Zara Sultana is, yeah.
Raisin.
She was elected as a Labour MP.
Nutter. She tweeted in the midst of the show, we are all Palestine Action, and I am duty-bound to ask you, are you Palestine Action, Graeme Stuart? Because I bloody well am not.
And I'm bloody well not either. Palestine Action, they attacked a British plane. Those planes are used to bring help to Gaza. That's how misguided these people are. They don't know what they're doing. They come attack an arms of the British state, and those who suggest it's treasonous, I think, have a very strong point. So, like you, I want to see strong action taken. These people need to be identified. They need to be arrested. But, we could end on a positive note about the Labour government. At least they're talking about...
He's gone. Thank you very much indeed, Graeme Stuart. 4:23, we're live across the UK. It's drive time. Michael Graham will be here in all his glory, the legend that is MG, before 5 o'clock. We've got Matthew Talbot, the only lefty that's allowed on this show, because he speaks common sense, which is what this station is all about. Now, I'm going to test you here, Amy. If you get this wrong, I'm giving up. Are we going to have another go? What are the Labour Party like in government?
They don't know what the they're doing.
This is Talk Drive.
unfortunately, we had just a few months ago, several times, Putin using language suggesting that if Ukraine didn't give in, or if Europe didn't stop helping Ukraine, do remember we have tactical nuclear weapons, so we have to be sure we can't be subject to what I would call nuclear blackmail.
Yeah.
It's where a country like Russia, with these small nuclear weapons, that can kill thousands of people, says, unless you do what I demand, I'll start using them against you. So this is about deterrence, and I think it's a sensible decision.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 4:26, it's Wednesday. We're live across the UK with Talk Drive, the home of free speech and common sense, and the place where you can have your say. As ever, my friends, 0344 499 1000, the telephone number, text to 87222. Afternoon, Jess, is Dean in Oxford. I watched Prime Minister's questions today. Labour are an absolute bleeding shambles. Not only is the cabinet harming the country, they're destroying their own party. It's absolutely insane how they won't answer questions, and they're in so much denial. Incredible. And I'm sure a vote of no confidence in this leader is not so far away. I'm delighted to be joined now by the only lefty that's allowed in this goddamn studio between 4 and 7, because this man, I'm not saying he's seen the light, but he speaks common sense. He's a good man. Matthew Talbot, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
He's not wrong, Dean, is he? I mean, Angela Rayner couldn't look anybody in the face this afternoon. I want to kick off with the Labour revolt. We're saying 120 plus Labour MPs, including the likes of Sadiq Khan, not that he's an MP, and I think he's an idiot, have vowed to sink the bill when it reaches the Commons next week. This is flagship policy time. This is $5 billion off the welfare budget, OK? They're warning that it could drive 250,000 people into poverty. This could seriously threaten a man's authority that is the Prime Minister. 11 months in, man. 11 months in. Was this welfare cut in the manifesto?
Don't recall it was.
Was anything in the bloody manifesto? Not an awful lot.
There was 100 and odd pages. The problem is, as I've always said, the most unpopular stuff we've done wasn't, and I think there is no clear mandate for that. So what's the point in the manifesto? This is what drives people crazy about politics. If it's a threat to his authority, good. This is what happens when you march MPs up a hill like winter fuel allowance and U-turn and let them get all the grief in their constituency over it with absolutely no credit whatsoever in enforcing the U-turn. It's also what happens when you ignore your child poverty strategy and kick it down the road constantly, and then try and implement legislation that's going to put 700,000 people into poverty and do totally the opposite of what a Labour government should do. It's also what happens when you treat MPs like dirt and put out anonymous briefings that, oh, we're not going to, we're going to say they're not going to get any ministerial jobs. I mean, most of them aren't good enough for them anyway, but, we'll do what we want. These are drunk on. But it's also what happens when you have a plan to win an election with no plan. Anyone that meets the Chief of Staff will tell you, no plan to govern. You've had 14 years. You backed one candidate that was unsuccessful in 2015 in Liz Kendall. You backed a candidate and found yourself an empty vessel now. And you've had no priority other than trying to kill the left faction of the party. Utterly ridiculous. And this is where we find ourselves.
There is real anger in Labour ranks at Sir Keir Starmer, isn't there? I mean, I look, and I'm just, I sit here every day, but I look at a man who, there was this extraordinary sort of two visions this week with Trump. He's asked by Beth Rigby, did you see the interview looking out across the mountains at the G7? Do you believe a strike is imminent? No, he said, we had a 2-hour conversation. No, it's not, as a stealth bomber flew past in the back, literally 10 minutes later. Then you saw him and Trump. Did you see the pictures yesterday? Trump's got a file and some papers fall out, and Starmer's on the ground picking it up. He seems to want to try and please all the people all the time. And I said it at the election. The tent was so broad in my mind, Matt. He was always going to end up hacking. You've been very honest. You come from the left of the Labour Party. What you've seen of this man is he sold his soul down the river. You would prefer him to... it's almost like he's just done everything he needed to do to get the job. But if you're a waspy woman or a pensioner, or if you're a farmer, if you're a veteran, if you're in fact anybody who's worked all their lives, look at the illegal migrant situation, that story yesterday. You feel you're at the back of the queue and you're really hacked off. And my view about the Labour Party is, and I'm completely honest here, the view from the cheap seats is one thing. When you're in power, it's a completely different kettle of fish. And he is floundering. And I'm now with you 1,000,000%. He won't last 4 more years, not in a million years.
I've said it, as you know, for a long time. He'll do well to see out 2026. Rachel Reeves will be the same. Rachel Reeves will hang around because she is a useful punch bag for number 10, because she will continue to be more unpopular than Keir Starmer. A lot of the MPs blame her for things like the winter fuel allowance, not necessarily Keir. But I saw some data today, with the welfare cut in particular, of why this is utterly stupid from an electoral point of view. So, and I have to credit Chaminda Gianetti, the freelance journalist, and David Littlefair, who runs a group called Labour Beyond Cities. They shared some data with me that they've been working on for a while. If you, there's 50 MPs, Labour MPs currently, that have smaller majorities than those affected in their constituencies by these proposed PIP cuts. So 50 MPs might as well be gone. That's basically priced in, because if you're disabled, you're not voting for the person that's just cut your disability benefits. No chance. If we were to presume that would also influence 2 people in their lives, be that friends, be that family, that's 280 seats Labour would lose at the next election based on 2024 numbers. For electoral and parliamentary preservation alone, what are you doing?
Do you agree that the welfare budget is bloated?
Yes.
You believe that it pays, as I do, I mean, I've always said, and I've always nailed my colours to the mast, I'm very happy to be part of a system where I pay tax to help those who are less fortunate and those who need real help. What I'm really hacked off with, and this is a universal view, I haven't met anybody who disagrees, is that we seem to give the money to the wrong bloody people, and the people who need it miss out, right? I think the idea of cutting this bloated budget is absolutely right. It's a bit like the NHS, but people are so scared of this. What I find even more ironic overnight, and you'll give me your Labour take on this, was Kerry Badenoch saying, we'll help you get it through. You know politics, I don't. If you adhere to these 3 things. She knows that he can't, so he won't. She's stuck ahead above the parapet. Why would she not just sit there and let them kill themselves? I don't get that at all.
Because she can say he's kowtowing to her demands. And that's the other thing. How? Only this Labour Prime Minister and this Labour government could embolden and empower the most incompetent Conservative leader, well, since Liz Truss, I suppose, but beyond that, she makes the Tories less relevant by the day. You've given her a gift and she has your hands tied. How have you got yourself in that position? They've either got to not cut taxes and find money from elsewhere, which isn't going to happen. They will raise taxes in the budget. It's totally obvious. Anybody of any sense knows that. But she wants to get a scalp, and you're going to allow her to if you're not careful. Ultimately, none of this is relevant.
Are you really? Are you surprised at how crap he's been? Serious question.
No, I said from the off. I said on a different show on election night, this is the best it will get, because I've seen him up close, and you've now won this massive majority. Great feat, whatever. I mean, the Tories gave it to us on a plate, but you know.
I think anybody could have got that majority.
No, I think we could have done. However, it was always my concern, and I said at the time, was we're not going to see real change. What we're going to see is managed decline, and that's ultimately what's been happening over the last 12 months.
Let's talk about the highlight is the wrong word. The main story in the investigative piece in The Sun yesterday about taking us for a ride, channel migrants working illegally as takeaway delivery riders. I'm really strong on this. I mean, optics I think are quite important. I'd have put the doors in at 6 a.m. in the morning with the immigration services, and I'd have dragged those CEOs up to Downing Street. I don't understand why a minister says we're going to speak to them next week. I'd be fining them. You're not going to tell me unless there's a middleman and there's more to this. You're not going to tell me in a million years that companies don't know if they're giving £1,000 in cash a week to migrants. And how come those companies can process them enough from when they get off the boat to giving them a job, and we, the United Kingdom, can't get our asses into gear and process hundreds of thousands of migrants who are in this country and we don't know who the hell they are?
No, they don't. This is the problem. Anyone that's listening to this now can go onto Facebook Marketplace. This is how ridiculous it is. I've known about this for about a year. Nobody wants to do anything about it. You go on Facebook Marketplace and you type in Deliveroo profile, Uber Eats profile, these companies. People are selling profiles. So there's a black market of people realising there are people here that aren't allowed to work, can't work, don't have the legal paperwork, have no recourse to public funds. we can make a nice little earner, because if they've got a bit of cash, they're going to buy this profile, and they're pretending to be somebody else, which is obviously a safeguarding risk for any woman that lives on their own, who's ordering food, or anybody for that matter. For me, the book stops with the CEOs. Absolutely, I agree. They should be fined, they should be hauled in, and I think you can blame the individuals. I think, rightfully so, it's against the law. I think ultimately, if you are a true asylum seeker, or even if you're not, you're waiting for your claim to be processed and you get £5 a week.
You get a lot more than that, though, don't you?
No, £5 a day, sorry, £5 a day.
Yeah, £5 a day, and you get a doctor and a dentist and Pilates lessons and
but
lessons.
you don't feed your kids with doctor and dentist and whatever, that's my point.
No, but they don't come with their kids. Come on, Matty. I mean, you're not Darren Jones. Darren Jones said they're all women and children. He's another idiot, isn't he?
That's
83% of them are single men.
That's not true, but if I put myself in that position and I happen to find myself in a far-flung country because my country was in a right state, I would be desperate and try and do what I could to provide for my kids.
Yeah, I'm with you, but we're too soft in allowing that loophole to exist. That loophole should be closed.
That's why... No, I agree, and I said to you off air, I think there is an argument which people won't agree with, but either people are going to take... And this is also, if Whitehall is not going to allow a change to the system, whether that be through international law, ECHR, either reforming it or leaving it or whatever else, if we're going to carry on and pretend none of this is happening, the only thing I can see that could be useful is allowing people who have been waiting for 6 months or longer the right to work and give them a temporary national insurance number. If their asylum claim's failed, see you later, you've got to go. However, these people can build up some money, so if they are passed, they're not relying on the state. At the minute, we have record amount of people claiming from the state, not giving anything back, and maybe we should give them the opportunity to do minimum wage jobs. And it will also maybe potentially solve a labour crisis because nobody wants to work.
I love your honesty about the Labour Party. We love having you on. He's toast, isn't he, Starmer?
Yeah, no, he's not. He's not making the election. I've always been of that opinion, and I will still be of the opinion the only person that can give any sort of credibility will be Andy Burnham. You need someone from outside the building that cannot
Not Wes Streeting.
No, because he's still voted for these measures. Yep. If you have somebody that can't be tied to the unpopular decisions of the manifesto, or that wasn't in the manifesto, then you've got half a chance because you can go wiping the slate clean. We're doing this.
We love having you on, Maddie. Thank you so much indeed. 23 minutes to 5 o'clock. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive. Loads of you responding. We'll get to you. Lots of people slagging off Graeme Stuart. Next, the legend, the myth, the man that makes this station what it is. Mike Graham, next on Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
To 5, we are honoured, always on a Wednesday, to allow the airways to be graced by the legend that is Mike Graeme. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How nice to see you.
We did Plank, by the way. It's probably one of the funniest ones ever. 7 o'clock Friday.
It is good, yeah. Absolutely.
All things
very
electric.
unusual entries this week.
Yes.
Sort of just slightly
the Qatari
weird.
camel herder.
The camel herder, the swan. What, I don't know.
There was a man caught fondling swans in Regent's Park. I'm not saying anymore. And your migrant of the day, Val in Ormskirk, just said to me, I've just been reading the Telegraph about a Tajik man winning the right to stay here because he would be forced to shave off his beard if he's deported to his home country. It's taken him a long time to grow it.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's not impossible to grow it back, is it? What do you mean a long time? How long does it take to grow a beard? Not that long.
Are you telling me that a judge let him stay because he'd have to shave his beard?
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's absolutely insane.
I don't know what's going on. What's your view on these? I mean, it's a great piece of reporting and undercover journalism by The Sun.
Yeah.
This is moving on, this story on the channel migrants working illegally. I said it. I saw your response yesterday. I'd be fining these companies massive amounts right now and censoring.
Why wait till next week to go and see them? Yvette Cooper says, oh, yeah, we'll have a meeting next week. Well, how about you have a meeting, Angela Eagle, rather, have a meeting like now?
And I'd have put the doors in with the migration service at 6 a.m. yesterday morning, as Harry Colquitt rightly said.
And you don't have to look for these people. You know where they are because the Home Office has got a record of every hotel. You just go to that hotel. If there's bikes outside, you take the bikes, you put them under a steamroller, crush them in front of the cameras, and arrest the people that were driving them. Simple. Well, it's not hard, is it?
But you don't think it's really ironic that they can be processed on Facebook within 10 minutes and get a job, and we can't bleeding well process them in 53 weeks?
No, I know.
I find the whole thing, I genuinely find the whole thing almost embarrassing.
Yeah, but what's even worse is that, once again, you know, something that we've been talking about here on Talk for probably the best part of the last 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, it's turned out to be true. When people would say, oh, no, they can't get benefits when they come here. Well, they do. They get benefits.
Doctors' appointments.
It's not true to say that, you know, the lefties used to always say it's not true, it's just racism, it's dog whistling, it's all of that stuff. You're just trying to create hate and division. No, because this has been going on and we've been seeing it before our very eyes, everywhere you go. And
it's not going away. And suddenly that rhetoric that we've been using on Talk suddenly is, I hate the word mainstream, but people aren't, as you quite rightly say, going, oh, that's outrageous. Yeah. You and I, whenever we're out, we meet people after people who say, please keep going, because it's the only place where you get common sense. And it's true. And
I was walking the dog one time down in...
Ziggy.
Ziggy, yeah.
Does he play guitar?
He doesn't,
Do you see what
but he was named, but he was named after Ziggy, who
You don't know what
guitar.
we're talking about, youngsters through there, do you?
They must do, surely.
Do you know what? Do you know why they don't know about Ziggy Stardust?
They don't know what the they're doing.
That's why, and she pushed the button brilliantly.
I love that. We've been doing that all day today. The thing is, right, I was walking along the promenade, as you do. Yes. And only a week before, I'd been in a separate part of the beach, which is called Couden Bay, which is quite a nice part of the world. Graham Norton used to have a house there, funny enough. And I suddenly looked as I was driving past, and there were about 50 men all flying kites, right? Kites? So I thought, this is a bit odd. And I got out and had a look, and it turned out they were all from Afghanistan, because you might remember The Kite Runner was quite a successful movie, quite a successful book. The kite flying is a very big thing in Afghanistan. So they're all on a Sussex beach on a Sunday morning flying kites. And I thought, this is a bit strange. And but next week, after that, I'm walking the dog, and one of my kids is with me, and this guy sort of walks past, catches up with us. He's got a rucksack on, he's got very nice trainers on. He looked, to all intents and purposes, like a boat migrant, and he said, excuse me, can you tell me where Couden Beach is? Couden Bay Beach is? I said, yes, over there. And he was going with a kite to go and join them. And I said to my son, I said, I think he's just got off a boat.
He's just
and you go, what's going on?
Sorry, so you've come to England to take part in a kite flying competition on a Sunday morning somewhere in Sussex, and we've let you in?
And then presumably the rest of the week he's on an Uber bike.
Unbelievable.
You know.
There's some fantastic stuff. Can I just very quickly touch upon the Labour revolt? And Matt Torbett, there, who we both love enormously, he says it's curtains. He has said for 6 months, Starmer, he said on election night on another station, that's as good as it gets. He says he'll be gone within 12 months. Yeah, I think he doesn't last the year. I mean, I know people will say to me, you've been saying this since he got in, and I have, because I've said many times, something is going to bring this guy down. You know, they may not get rid of him, but he's going to either have to walk out or he's going to be forced out by some event or other, which comes to the fruition. I mean, next Tuesday, we're told by Angela Rayner today in Prime Minister's Questions, we are definitely holding the vote. I bet they cancel it. I bet you any money they don't have the vote, because they know they can't afford to lose it. Because if they lose it, Rachel Reeves is done. She's gone. Well, Matt Torbett says that they'll leave her there because number 10 for as long as they can, because she's the focal point and it takes the heat off him. But what does it say, right? I don't know what you thought about Badenoch saying, I'll get it through. I'd be sitting ignoring that and watching them kill themselves. Exactly. That's what I'd be doing. Yeah.
I mean, maybe she's just messing with his head, but I don't understand that policy and that sort of, that strategy at all. I don't see how that's helpful.
I do. By the way, please, whatever you want to talk about, 0344 499 1000. I'm going to throw a story at you because this is Emma Thompson.
Yes. Dame Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
She is a dame, isn't she?
She's one of those lovies, really, isn't she?
She flew in. I remember she flew in to take part in an Extinction Rebellion event.
Did. Yeah, no, first class
all right for her to fly because she was making a point.
She thinks sex should be available on the NHS. You'll have to explain this to me. Free sex, hookers on the NHS?
Well, apparently she's in a new movie, right, where she has apparently playing a character who has kind of lost interest in sex or who has nobody to have sex with, so she hires a sex worker, apparently, I presume a man, to have sex with. And she also
Don't presume. It might be a woman with a penis.
It could be. But she says a lot of her friends, as a result of seeing the film, have also done the same thing. So I'm presuming she means women of a certain age who've got a bit of spare cash and who haven't got a bloke, or the bloke's not interested. They're now kind of apparently buying male escorts.
So we're talking about taxpayer-funded orgasms?
Basically, yeah. She says they're very hard to get.
What, orgasms?
Yeah. She says they're more difficult than you know.
What, orgasms?
That's what she means, yeah. She says they're more difficult to get than people think.
Jodie's just said to me they are, and all men are stupid except for Cameron.
Well, I mean, I could talk about that all day, really, but that's probably best if I don't. Yeah.
But Emma Thompson, would like free.
I mean, can you imagine the waiting list? Yeah. Which waiting list do you want? I'm the one waiting for sex. Right. 7 years it is to wait for that.
7 years, you die of frustration.
It's 7 years for everything else. So why would it be any quicker to get sex?
You get the 7-year itch.
You'd have to ring up at 8 o'clock as well, be in a queue, right? Can you imagine the rush for the 8 o'clock thing like you do when you go to the GP?
You're caller number 46. When you get through, what is it?
Your call is important to you.
What have you got? I need sex, to be honest.
Do you want to actually have proper sex? I mean, like the old News of the World, wouldn't it? Full sex, do you want, or do you want just some other sex act?
Phone sex, probably, because it just lasts longer, to be fair, doesn't it?
As they used to describe it, an unnatural sex act in the tabloids.
What is that?
I can't tell you.
Oh, right, an unnatural sex act. We'll go to a break on that. Let us know your thoughts on Dame Emma Thompson, the goody two-shoes, who thinks that we should get taxpayer-funded orgasms. 0344 499 1000. You're with Talk Drive.
I think it's a common misconception. I think a lot of people do think that actually it is illegal for first cousins to get married because of the obvious concerns around, and everybody knows it, there's sort of Habsburg monarchs from Spain and everything like that, and those issues that happen around health. But it's not illegal. It was illegal for hundreds and hundreds of years in the UK until Henry VIII decided to marry the sister or the cousin of his then wife. So it was actually done in a very strange way.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You've right kicked off, haven't you, on this story? Sex available on the NHS. Dame Emma Thompson drinks it's good for you. And we're going to talk about tax-funded orgasms. Stuart Howell's Owen, mate, says, get the wrong sort of escort, you get the wrong kind of 7-year itch, mate. I think that's right. Dave Clifford, sex on the NHS, sign me up. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise it's only available to bloody migrants. Let's go to Salford, which is brave. Nigel, you're on Talk Drive, and the legend that is Mike Graham is with me. Go.
Hi, Jeremy. What it is, this sex on the NHS.
Yes.
You have to ring up at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And you have to, and there's a recorded message. Recorded message says you are number 69 in the queue.
Brilliant. Good luck. Well done. Nigel in Salford. You see, this gets people. With everything that's going on in the world, it's occasionally nice to have a sense of humour. I don't know what he's talking about, by the way.
This is why people love this station, because you do actually bring a bit of joy to people at the same time as we're alerting them to all the madness that's going on.
Graham in Bushy, which is where I was conceived.
Was it?
Yes.
My goodness me, because our boss comes from there.
I was conceived in Bushy. Is Emma Thompson offering her services? Oh no, that would be far below.
Oh, only to very upper crusty sort of people.
Do you think upper crusty?
Upper crusty.
Like Hugh Grant. What you got is a great... This, by the way, hypocrisy is always highlighted on Talk.
Yeah,
Michael Eavis, the boss of Glastonbury.
Eavis, who is the boss of Glastonbury, he's owned the thing. It's said to be worth about £400 million, right? Oh. And he's the founder. And it started off as this very, very small kind of little folk festival a little bit further down south from Bath and all that. He's decided that as much as he likes Jeremy Corbyn, and he's very much a socialist.
He's
been a socialist all his life.
Very vocal about socialism.
He doesn't like the idea that he might have to have a rather large inheritance tax bill when he passes some of his money on to his daughter. So do you know what he's done? He's put it all in a trust.
Has he?
So that he will avoid paying potentially around about £80 million
20% of his 400 million profit would go on death duties, on death tax.
Yes.
And he's put it in a trust to avoid that.
To avoid it,
And that's your average socialist, isn't it?
That is your average socialist, right? Last year, the company sold 145,000 tickets to the event at about £300 each. You know, Glastonbury now is no longer a place that young people...
How much is that? 145,000 at 300 quid. I'm doing the math.
Pre-tax profits doubled to nearly £6 million after revenues jumped 20% to 68 million. Revenues of
tickets are 43.5 million pounds worth of tickets. 43.5 million quid.
Yeah.
And that's where I started my career down there. And it was, you're right, it was just a folk festival. Now it's obscene.
Now it's obscene, but nobody goes now who is young because they can't afford it. 300 quid for a ticket. I mean, that's ridiculous. People pay thousands.
Have you been?
I've never been to Glastonbury.
My wife
and I will
went.
never go.
No, I don't want to.
The only time
I don't want to poo in a hole.
The only person I would go with is my mate Steve Lillywhite, because Steve Lillywhite was the U2's producer, right?
Yep.
And he told me that he's only been to Glastonbury once, and he only went because they gave him a helicopter. And so he helicoptered in, he produced U2 shows, he spent the night on the tiles with a bunch of rock stars, and then he flew back out in the morning.
But you see,
that's what I would do.
I think that's right. I think that's you now. I think that's your life.
I would never. Also, I hate camping. I'm not camping anywhere ever in my life. But how about this, right? This is the first person to enter Glastonbury today, because Glastonbury opened today. And so it's full of now sort of people from West London.
When is it on?
Chiswick. It starts... basically today. Today's the first day.
Is it going to rain?
There's going to be storms.
Of course.
Yeah, and there's going to be sunshine. But guess who the first person was in the queue?
Keir Starmer.
And this will tell you exactly what Glastonbury is all about.
I nearly said Philip Schofield.
Did you? It's not him. No, he doesn't queue. No, he goes in the back, as it were.
Sorry?
Nicholas Beard, right?
Nicholas what?
Nicholas Beard.
Oh, who is his beard?
Is the first man who was in the Glastonbury queue.
Right.
He's 55 years of age.
Yes.
He comes from Cambridge, and do you know what he does for a living?
He's a beard.
He makes chutney. I'm not joking.
Sorry, a 55-year-old man called Nigel Beard who makes chutney.
Nicholas Beard.
Nicholas Beard. How do we know he's the first?
Because there's a story in the Times where there's people down there actually covering it. Unfortunately for Nicholas, he arrived at 2 p.m. on Tuesday but was forced to stand for much of the 18-hour wait after a group of 7 men and 1 woman from Florence arrived and broke his camping chair.
What do you mean they broke his camping chair?
I presume they all sat in it at the same time. Apparently they were all a bit the worse for
I've
wear.
got a great story where we live by the coast. There's a field, right?
Yeah.
And I have to use my words, travelling community, who I'm very close to.
Yes.
Suddenly woke up one morning.
It over yet.
And they woke up and the field was covered in travellers' caravans and Range Rovers.
Caravans.
And I used to be called the king of the gym. Anyway, so I'm walking and they go, all right, Jez, this isn't right. Anyway, the police get involved and they say, you're going to have to leave tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
2 German tourists see this, they've come over in their camper van. They see all these people with their caravans, so they go, and the bloke walks out and he gets 200 quid off for the night, for 2 nights. And when they wake up in the morning, they've all buggered off because the police have him along, and then they arrest the Germans who paid 200 quid to the travelling community.
Well, to be honest, they're lucky they still had, the car.
Well,
really.
I mean, yes. But by the way, Glastonbury, not for me either.
No.
I couldn't. No, it's very dirty. But
well, I just don't want to.
Everybody goes glamping now.
Glamping. Really expensive glamping. I mean, it's thousands of pounds. So, but these are the only people that can afford to go.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I can see you sitting around the fire pit drinking wine, but not putting a tent.
Well, I go to Carfest, which is Chris Evans.
Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic festival. And last year, me and the boss went down in a car. Spent some time and came back in a car. And didn't.
I arranged the car for you.
Didn't stay the night. Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, maybe you should come with us this year.
Yeah, and I like Carfest is brilliant. And what Chris does, he does it a bit. I always think Glastonbury's a bit dirty and a bit full of people who feel like they should be at Glastonbury, but they don't actually want to be.
As well.
Yeah, they do. Victoria stank when she came back.
And also, I said this, and this is one serious point. How long before you see an Iranian flag being flown? Because you'll see a load of Palestinian flags. I bet you any money this year, and there'll be Iranian flags being flown as well.
Iranian
I don't
flags.
want to be part of that.
Can we go back to the absolute most wonderful part of the week? Donald Trump.
Yes.
Dropping the F-bomb.
Fantastic.
I mean,
just fantastic.
Just real.
Yeah. Well, we played it this morning, right after playing a clip from Keir Starmer talking about why he was at the NATO summit. And there's just chalk and cheese, There's Keir Starmer sort of stumbling and bumbling around.
Did you see him picking up his paperwork?
Well, that was when he was at the G7. That was last week. But this week, he's stumbling and bumbling around. He doesn't know what he's really there for. Nobody really cares what he thinks. He's got no influence whatsoever on NATO. And meanwhile, the boss of NATO is calling Donald Trump daddy.
Sorry?
Called him daddy.
Who called him
daddy?
The
boss of NATO called him daddy.
Why?
Because basically, Trump was saying, dealing with Israel and Iran and Palestine is like 2 kids fighting in a schoolyard. He said, you've got to let them fight for a while.
He is like the daddy.
Yeah, it's like, you've got to let them fight for a while, and then once they've worn themselves out for a bit, then you can talk to them and tell them to stop fighting. He said, that's what we're doing with these guys. And old, what's his face?
Is it Rutter?
Rutter, yeah.
Yeah, Rutter.
He pops in and goes, sometimes the daddy has to break it all up, yes? So he's basically calling him the daddy. What's going on?
It's brilliant, isn't it? It is really... Oh, Mike Graham, top guy. Starmer being gone, nothing I would celebrate more. Eustace alone cannot cover it. Who replaces him scares me more. Just look at that front bench, Howard.
I know.
Who does replace him?
I know. I think it probably would end up being Angela Rayner. Just because they wouldn't know what else to do. And she's a smart operative as well. I think she runs rings around most of them because she does what she wants. She gets away with it. He's tried to fire her twice.
Yeah.
She's ended up getting a better job.
We love Ange. We love to speak to Ange.
Well, at least she says what she thinks.
Shoes are awful, though.
Shoes aren't great.
No. Jerry Springer had crap shoes. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Tomorrow morning, by the way. Sarah Pochin's on this show in a minute, by the way. Reforms and people talk about that. She was on breakfast. She's on drive time, which is brilliant. Tomorrow morning, anything special?
I don't know. No idea.
That's what I love. But you know those people who plan for hours?
Yeah. Well, there'll be somebody planning something.
I got here at 7 o'clock. I salute Jodie. What a fantastic job Jodie and Faith have done
Tremendous.
this week.
Yeah. Who's Ryan?
Do you remember
Who
Ryan?
Is he? Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah,
some tall boy.
Guy.
He's
always on holiday.
Yeah, always on holiday.
He's always away.
Not with Jodie this time.
Oh, well.
0344 499 1000. News at 5 is next.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humphrey Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
Unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's plank of the week, he's got a sizable tank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep calling me...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lost my button. Welcome back. Hour 2 of Drive for Wednesday. We're live across the UK, the home of free speech and common sense. On the way, Reform UK's newest MP. I'm hugely excited. Sarah Poin, just a tick from Runcorn and Helsby, of course. She's been on breakfast. According to Peter Carball, who's with me, Pete, she's a massive fan of yours. Is that right?
No.
That's what you said to me. You said to me off air. Sarah Poin is just a magnificent woman, and she's very, very nice to me the whole time.
Well, listen,
You're a liar. She's never even met you. Thank you for all your comments, by the way. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. This big story The Sun launched yesterday. How illegal migrants are taking us all for a bleeding ride. They could be processed to get a job with Uber Eats or Just Eat or Deliveroo within 10 minutes of arriving in our country. They can get doctor's appointments and dental appointments. They can work for cash. But oh no, you just carry on paying your tax, not breaking the law, not getting a handout, bringing your kids up, and we'll screw you. Do you know what this Labour government know? Why this Labour government, why are they so bad?
They don't know what the they're doing.
That's absolutely true. In my humble opinion, why are you laughing, Peter Cardwell?
It's just great. I mean, I just remember when...
Why is Peter Cardwell so crap on drive time?
They don't know what the they're doing.
There you go.
Oh dear, I feel as if I've been mugged, Jeremy.
Oh, brilliant. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. What we all believe is what Sally says. The food delivery company should be heavily fined, and the hotels. John says a lot of these illegal bike delivery drivers will owe gangs for the boat crossing. Some of this cash they earn will go back to the ringleaders and the crossing organisers. Nothing surprises me anymore. Oh no, I don't want to talk. Jill in East Evans talking about the fact that I've been diagnosed with Crohn's disease yesterday, and she thinks...
Have you?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Why?
Well, it's a horrible thing.
My son's been running around saying stoma boy until I pointed out that it's genetic.
Back for life. No,
Thanks,
it's not
mate.
fun. Well,
that's brilliant.
If we're going to talk about Crohn's, I have inflammatory bowel disease.
Do you?
Yeah, the reason I have it is because...
Who says this show's full of what?
Yes, I had it. I got it because I had salmonella about 15 years ago.
Jodie says, "Can we go to the call? I don't want to spend the day talking about your..."
I lost 2 stone in the salmonella plan.
Yeah.
I went into hospital for 9 days. Was on a drip.
You need to get it again. 0344 499 1000 text to 87 222. Right, pin back your luggles. Delighted to welcome for the first time to drive Sarah Poin MP, Reform's newest MP. A very good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Lovely to be on the show. Thank you for asking me eventually. It's taken you a while.
Well, I'm a little bit. I'm rather shy as a person, Sarah, and I don't know why you're laughing. Oh, by the way, are you a massive fan of Cardwell?
No, she's not.
You don't even know who he is?
I'm an absolute massive fan of his. I told him that I listen to him all the time. I actually say Peter Cardwell's on.
Clearly a woman of great taste, Sarah.
Great. You've never mentioned me, though, Sarah, which is great.
It's not all about you, Jeremy.
It is. It's drive time. It's my show. Yeah.
Well, that's because I haven't really experienced much of you, Jeremy.
Well, there we go.
Let's see how this interview goes.
We're about to experience each other. Where would you like to start? On this show, you get a choice. Would you like to start with how your deputy leaders highlighted probably one of the biggest, I think, disgusting acts of this two-tier justice system? Let's talk about Lucy Connolly. I mean, let me just say this part. I watched Tice highlight this, and I'm sure people snigger and some people will say it's PR, but what he does, and what your party has done increasingly, is highlight things that people that ring this show the whole time are genuinely concerned about. So in this country of ours, I don't condone what she wrote, Sarah, at all. A slap on the wrist would have done. I'd have done some community service for her in the Muslim community, but actually being thrown in jail for 31 months while convicted paedophiles like Hugh Edwards are walking free on a BBC pension, whilst illegal migrants can come into this country and commit sexual acts against English women, just about sums up why this government is an absolute shambles, doesn't it?
Well, look, Jeremy, I was a magistrate for 20 years. I know that this sentence was outrageously over the top. Normally, somebody who has no criminal record at all, which in this case is Lucy Connolly, would not be sent to prison for a first offence of this type. Clearly, there are cases where people do go straight to prison, of course, but for an offence of this type, it was a horrible thing to do. But at the end of the day, she is a classic example of somebody who can be dealt with through the community, through rehabilitation, which is exactly what this Labour government is pushing for, of course. They're emptying the prisons out, they're letting people out on early release, they are slashing time served, which, again, as a former magistrate, I find a very tough pill to swallow, because it's totally undermining the decisions made, or the powers that magistrates have to sentence appropriately. So for all of their, oh yes, we need to stop sending people to prison, we need to, I mean, they're even talking about taking away sentencing powers altogether from magistrates up to 12 months, which is the only power that magistrates have, because any crime that is less than that would go straight to the community.
But what people, I'm completely with you, what people are concerned about, there's this ridiculous story today about some man who, again, found a left-wing human rights law that doesn't work for the Labour Party or isn't in the cabinet. We've had these ridiculous stories. Mike was doing one this morning where a man was left to stay here because shaving his beard off would be meant if he had to go back to his own country. We've got left-wing human rights lawyers being paid for by the British taxman to justify people staying in this country. We don't know what they're up to and the crimes they might commit. And yet, and this is, Sarah, this is the point, and you'll know this, I guess, I voted Tory in my life. I voted Reform because I'm sick and tired of feeling like I'm 18th in the queue, and that's where so many people feel they are.
The British people have absolutely had enough of this, the way that the Tories ran the country, and now the accelerated decline of this country under the Labour government. But, you know, there's no doubt about it. We have a two-tier justice system. We should be proud of the justice system in this country that has been adopted by countries around the world, let's face it. But now we're in this situation. I don't know whether you're aware, Jeremy, but if you come in and you get rejected from your asylum claim, you can appeal and appeal and appeal, and there is no limit to the amount of times you can appeal. So you can effectively spend the rest of your existence in this country at the taxpayer's expense, and as you say, on legal aid, paying these woke left-wing lawyers to come up with another reason that you should stay in this country. And it doesn't matter if you fail your appeal, you just go to another appeal. I'm not sure how many people are aware of that.
Well, I was talking to Nigel on the show a couple of weeks ago, and people always talk about, and I'm really interested in your opinion, with that great story in the front of the Sun the other day, and the investigative piece about how these people are coming over and working. I hear about, the word deterrent the whole time. I wasn't a massive fan of Rwanda, and most of all, I wasn't a massive fan that they didn't actually get it bloody well started. Smashing the Gans is a pile of old rubbish. That doesn't work. We're still giving France £500 million whilst they laugh at us while smoking their Gauloise cigarettes, probably. But here's what I would say. I don't know what you think. This country's too soft. If you lay out the red carpet, if you say, oh, there's a hotel. I used to live in Windsor. Datchet's been taken over by illegal migrants. People are frightened for their lives, right? That's a fact. It's not rhetoric. If you say to people, come on, we'll put you in a hotel, we'll give you a mobile phone, we'll give you a bank account, we can get a job. What are you saying to your people who pay their stamp, who live their lives correctly? And the great thing about reform, for me, and I could be wrong, maybe you guys will, I don't know, but for me, it's really nice to hear people saying, I'm going to put Britain first. And I don't mean to sound in any which way wrong, because we were saying this on this station 5 years ago and being called every name under the sun.
Look, reform is all about putting the British people first, and we're the only people in the Houses of Parliament that are prepared to stand up and talk to people like yourself and, and really push this message that we are not afraid to say it as it is. And the fact is, so let's take these asylum seekers or these illegal immigrants that are coming over and immediately getting jobs with Deliveroo. Well, in the meantime, as you've listed, you and I, through our tax, and all the hard-working people in my constituency of Runcorn and Helsby are fed up with paying taxes and watching these people get free accommodation, free mobile phones, free everything that you listed. And now we know working in the economy completely illegally, getting paid for that as well.
Yep.
So what a great win-win deal they're on. And as for the French, well, I've said quite clearly, let's take their fishing rights away. Let's stop giving them the millions for, for nothing, for waving these people across the channel. They're waving them on their way to England. And as for this new French diktat that they're going to go 300 metres out to sea and turn them back, well, what a load of absolute nonsense. Do they really think the British people believe that any of that is going to happen? And everybody's had enough.
And the point for me is that I go back to it. Anybody that said this before was labelled everything. I'm not sure your party say they do. I'm not sure most MPs understand the depth of anger, the real depth of anger. And
they don't.
And it's not the far right. This is traditional Tory voting people who believe in strong borders and a police that deals with crime rather than walks away to do the Macarena, that thinks that actually the military should be strong and that taxation should be low. I'm not just aiming this at the Labour Party. You can add the Tories to that list, but I'll tell you something that I have had said to me in the last few months on this station, Sarah, more than anything. People are actually saying, I'm embarrassed of my country now. Embarrassed. When I go abroad, when I speak to people that I know say to me from America, geez, look what Trump's done here. He's just closed the borders. What are you doing there? You're laying out the red carpet. Make it impossible for them to get that, and I absolutely guarantee I wouldn't let them set foot. They'd be on a boat processed right in the channel.
This is Reform's policy. This is Reform's policy. They don't come ashore effectively.
Absolutely.
They've taken off those boats, and don't call them small boats anymore, well, you haven't, but these are big boats with 70, 80 illegals on. They're coming in. This is organised crime gangs doing this, and they are coming in. Well, we will not let them come into this country. They will be taken up when they arrive on the beaches to a deportation centre and sent home, and they will never ever be allowed to come back into this country in any way at all. If you try and get here as an illegal immigrant, you are not welcome in this country.
I know Peter wants to jump in. Can I just say, though, my opinion, everybody's got an opinion, it's great to hear yours. I wouldn't even do that. I would get two massive tankers and I would refurb them, Pete. I would have them picked up from the boats by the Navy, put on those tankers, processed on that boat, and if they cannot show whatever, they are literally sent back. I don't understand a country. I don't understand, Pete, both of you really, a country that can sort out the mess in its passport office as quickly as they did. Why cannot we have somewhere with trained people that can make a bloody decision?
Yeah.
It's about having the will, and no government has had the will to do it. The Tories have not had the will to do it, and this Labour government absolutely does not have the will to do it. Reform will do it.
When they want to save the blast furnace...
Candy peas on! Woo!
Shush. When they want to save the blast furnace in Scunthorpe, they can do that in a day. They can recall Parliament, they can put the legislation through in a day. When the will is there, you know, they've got a huge majority. And actually, on that note, Sarah, I just wonder what reforms policy and what you're going to do on this issue of welfare reform, because the government could be defeated by its own members, by its own MPs in regard to welfare, because we've got to get that bill down, don't we? We're talking about £5 billion reduction. I just wonder what reforms policy is, especially in light of the fact that Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, said that you're all things to all men and that you're Corbynism with a union flag.
Well, look, we know that we've got both the Tories and Labour running scared. But even it's going back to this benefits bill. I was really surprised today at PMQs. Angela Rayner did PMQs today because Keir Starmer was absent for the second week running.
Of course he was. Never hear Keir.
I personally think he's scared to come back to this country at the moment because he knows the reaction that he's getting from his core vote. But Angela Rayner actually said loudly and clearly today in the chamber that they were not going to pull that vote. And we know that there's 108 Labour MPs and possibly 12 ministers that will vote against the government. So they've got quite a job to do between now and Tuesday to get that through. Clearly, if that fails, that's a massive, massive message.
Sarah, what's reform going to do? What's reform going to do?
Yeah, Kemi Badenoch, I didn't understand this. I'd watched them skew themselves, but she says if you answer those three, I'll support you. They're obviously not going to answer. Is Reform going to vote for this because everybody wants a reduction? Or are you going to sit, as I would do, and watch him be skewered by his own party? What's the Reform take on this?
Well, exactly. The whole thing is a mess. It hasn't been out to proper consultation. Reform's view on the whole sickness benefit, which effectively is what the PIP is about, that we're talking about, is that it has been abused. And it's been abused badly since COVID as well. That enhances. But I think since 2019, the sickness benefit bill has gone up hugely. I can't quite think of the figures, but absolutely hugely. And clearly since COVID, as I say, it's gone up even more. Reform's position is simple. We know that there are people that are absolutely taking advantage of our benefit system. Something needs to happen, okay? Something needs to stop this because this country's going to be bankrupt.
It is bankrupt. Also, we can't even afford the interest on our debts.
So we do need to look at this sector, but this current position on Tuesday is an interesting one. There's been no consultation. We want the hard-working people of this country to feel that the system is fair. Who wants to live in a family where you're going out to work, you're struggling to make ends meet, and I've got lots of constituents like that in Runcorn and Helsby, and yet you're living next to a family who are laughing all the way to the benefits office. This culture that we've got has got to change. People are taking the mickey, and I'm not actually even talking necessarily about, illegal immigrants anymore. We know that there's a culture in this country because we've let it happen. We've let it become too easy. We've got to go back to face-to-face assessments of whether or not you deserve sickness benefits, disability benefits. But I'll tell you this, during the by-election that I've recently fought, I had disabled people coming in tears, concerned that they were really going to lose benefits that they deserve. So this bill is ill thought through. Let's see what the next few days brings, because I'm not convinced in its current shape this will go in on Tuesday. I think they will make amendments. So ask me again before Tuesday.
So at the moment you're voting against, but you'll see what the amendments say.
I think we need to see what the amendments say. Okay. But I've tried to make our position quite clear. It needs to be changed. People are taking the mickey. Hard-working taxpayers like you and me are fed up of that as well. There's so much in this country that's broken that the Tories have let break and the Labour Party are continuing to break. But I don't believe it will come in on Tuesday in its current form.
Can you ask Sarah, please, where would Reform take the illegals offshore to process them?
Do you know what? It doesn't matter wherever that question comes. Your suggestion of a tanker, fine. Let's take them to one of our, islands somewhere, fine. It really doesn't matter. The point is they do not come into this country. We put them somewhere, whether it's an agreement with a third party.
I'd send them to the Falkland Islands or the Orkney Islands and create a real...
And I'll tell you what,
I'm being honest, in a real detention centre that doesn't have trappings, and very quickly the message would get back, as it did. I always tell this story, Sarah. 2 weeks after the inauguration, CNN cut to the border in Mexico, and there was a woman with her kids crying, going, "There's no point." Probably a different accent. "There's no point. I'm not going in. He won't let me in, and I'm going at the time." Precisely. If you make it, if the message gets back that you'll end up in the nothing wrong with the Orkney Islands, by the way.
But Jeremy, the point is that countries like Australia have done it. We don't need to do it for long. This is a policy that does not need to take long. It's sending a strong message that we will not let you in. We will not give you a free house. We will not give you benefits. We put our people first, and you are not welcome unless you come here legally and you have something to offer.
I remember the Australian thing because my brother is married to an Australian woman, and she's a bit left, to be fair, vegan. Nothing to do. And they were all appalled. And yet what's really interesting, Pete, about what Tony Abbott did when Albanese, the Labour Prime Minister, just won a second term, kept that policy and basically said, "I'm really sorry, we're skinned, we're struggling with education and the health service, and we're not prepared to crook public services anymore for people who haven't paid for it." That's basic economics.
And this country is heading towards bankruptcy, and I am really concerned, Reform are really concerned, and all our supporters are really concerned that another 4 years of this Labour government is going to be so damaging in so many ways. And what Peter said just now, they can rush through in 2 hours a change to our abortion laws, which are fundamental and dreadful, in my opinion. I voted against. So they can do that because it suited them, and yet they can't sort this basic stuff out, this welfare system, the boats coming in. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, but when it chooses them, or they can rush policy through. That was an absolute disgrace. And every time I ask a question of the Prime Minister or any government minister, they have now adopted this policy of just jeering and laughing and saying, she's more interested in the social media or whatever David Lammy said. I don't know if you saw that. An absolute disgrace.
He's more interested in eating, isn't he?
The way that they speak to us, because they're afraid of us, because they know if the British people are going to vote Reform next time.
It's really interesting, isn't it? When it's really interesting, actually. And somebody had said to me, I think it was Mike earlier, that you were jeered and whatever. That would absolutely sustain me and make me think that I was doing the right job. You're getting under their skin. Yeah. You should be happy, though, Sarah Pochen. There's a story today which is interesting. BBC staff. This is another. I mean, the BBC don't start. I mean, it's worse. They've been told they must represent unpalatable and offensive views. By unpalatable and offensive, they mean the views that a majority and millions of people in this country actually think is sane and normal.
I look forward to an influx of invitations onto BBC programmes, because that's how they label us. I have done quite a few now debates on the BBC, but I can give you a classic example of something that's happening in my constituency, where the Labour lot and the BBC were complicit in this, in publishing a press statement online that the Labour PCC and the Labour leader of the council jointly did, saying what I was saying as a member of Parliament was untrue about the HMOs, about the drug dealing, about all the things that's going on in these HMOs inside the community, saying that I was making it up. And do you know what? The BBC did not use my statement back. Well, that is absolutely against everything that good journalism is about.
Do you know that...
A complete disgrace.
Do you know that about 12 hours before Mrs. Bull stood up and admitted what we've all known about the Rotherham and the northern rape gangs, because that's what they are, that a majority were British Pakistani men and Muslims and foreign illegals, the BBC ran a documentary, Chloe Dobbs was telling me about this, the night before on BBC iPlayer, or something or other, I don't watch the BBC, and she went, "Oh, this is great." And this was about 3 white men who had raped girls in the north.
Of course it was.
And it was so blatantly obvious. Yeah. The ideology that runs this government is frightening, and it is, Pete's a political hound, aren't you? Let's be perfectly honest. Yeah. And he will tell you that the world is changing, but Reform is in a position, you're 4 years out. The meat
We
needs
know.
to go on the bone, right? And you mustn't drop the ball, I guess.
No, and we know that we are in for a very bumpy ride. Personally, all of us, you know, I get attacked, like I say, in my community. We know we're in for a bumpy ride, but we are really good, committed people that are speaking up for the people of this country now, and nothing is going to stop me speaking. And in fact, I was asked this morning about how I feel about my personal safety. Now I'm raising issues, but I have to raise these issues because I was elected by the people of Runcorn and Helsby to be their voice, because no one is speaking up for them. Everyone is in denial. It's a Labour-run administration there. People are in denial, so they've elected me to be their voice, and I have to be brave and I have to be strong. And I encourage everybody that feels that they can support reform to get out there and be proud that there's now a party that is representing the hardworking British people of this country.
So how did I do? Will you come back?
I'll definitely come back. I'm not sure if you're as good as Peter, but we'll give it another go, Jeremy.
There's a marvellous Northern Irish phrase which is going through my mind right now, Jeremy. Slap it up, you.
Sorry, Sarah Poin, could you just repeat what you just said?
No, I'm gonna love you and leave you now, guys.
I'm going to phone Farage. You're right in the trouble. No, listen, thank you so much indeed. We really love having you on. Sarah Poin, Reforms MP in Runcorn and Helsby. Can we dissect that and also talk about how Dame Emma Thompson, after the break, reckons that there should be taxpayer-funded orgasms on the NHS? Peter Cardwell and Jezza in Pink are next.
Many of the migrants that come here, they're coming here, they're fleeing countries that we've wandered into, whether it be Libya, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, even Iran now as well. We've bombed the hell out of Iran, but there's no follow-up plan.
Well, yeah,
to
but
take
we
Iran
haven't
into a
bombed.
better
Yeah, but
place.
hang on, Tobias, hang on. We haven't bombed the hell out of Iran at all. You know, as the government will tell you, nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything to do with the bombing of
What
Iran.
I'm saying is from a Western perspective, then that's what's happened.
Yeah, but they're not
in
fleeing. They're not fleeing Iran because we bombed it. Is my point.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 5:30. Peter Carble, the boy in pink, and Jezza in pink, although mine's a slightly lighter pink than yours.
Yes, it is. And can I just say a huge thank you to the team behind the scenes who made you a cup of tea there in the break. And I know that when you finish that cup of tea, you're going to take it to the kitchen and put it in the dishwasher.
What's this about? Come on.
I don't know, Jeremy.
Is this Muggate?
What is this about?
Is
what
this
is this?
Muggate?
It is about Muggate. It is about Muggate. Do you want to tell the people about Muggate, or shall I?
No, not really. But listen, you're attacking a man with Crohn's disease. If you want to kick a man
tell you
who's
what,
down.
if I had been involved in Muggate, I would never hear the end of it.
I would take, if I was going for cigarette peeps, I would go outside with a mug and I would forget to bring the mug.
Forget.
Leave it there. There were about 104 mugs.
So what happened was building security emailed us to say, why are there so many mugs in this flower pot? The fact is that Jeremy hadn't managed to go back upstairs
and
to leave his mugs
somebody
in.
took a photograph of it.
What was running through your mind when you thought,
I'm going to get the train?
Right, so you just put
and
the
I
mug.
asked Petrie Hoskins every day to take it, and she didn't. So it's basically her fault. 0344 419 1000. Loads to talk about. Sarah Poin.
Yes.
Impressive.
Yeah, I thought so. She speaks the language of ordinary people. You know, she's been elected.
The fact that they're getting a lot of grief.
They are getting a lot of grief. And listen, they're going to continue to get a lot of grief in Reform UK because they are. There could well be the next government of this country. Big poll out on Sunday saying that Reform UK for the first time are saying possible majority government.
Can you see that happening? Genuinely?
I can. Things are changing. They're at 34%. Starmer got 33% and got a huge majority. He's under pressure at the moment because of the welfare stuff.
Under pressure?
Yeah.
The best part of the week for me was seeing him interviewed by Beth Rigby at was it G7? I don't know, or maybe The Hague. And he stood on this bridge and he's got a green tie, she's got a green thing. His hair looks like the background. It's all very impressive. And she says to him, so, Prime Minister, you guarantee that you don't think Donald Trump is going to launch an attack? And he said, we had a 2-hour conversation last night, and there is absolutely no, as a stealth bomber through both.
Yes, exactly.
Literally 10 minutes later. He looks to me like a stooge to Trump. He looks like he's...
He has no influence. He has no influence on the global stage. He can go to the G7, as he did last week. He can go to NATO today in The Hague. Sadly, he's not there to...
Nobody gives a damn about Great Britain anymore. That's what's happened
to this country. They just don't take him seriously. I mean, people are talking about Iran, and they should talk about Iran. They should talk about Israel and Iran. Huge, important thing in the Middle East. But Keir Starmer is nowhere. I've asked the question, loads of people say, well, where's Britain in all this? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
matter. Longer.
Doesn't matter. Go on.
That's enough from you.
It does matter.
Well, it does. Of course it matters. It's a very important issue. But Keir Starmer's nowhere. He doesn't have any influence. Trump isn't listening to him, and I don't think many other players are.
Have you been to Chesterfield in your life?
Yes.
I'm going to Chesterfield with you now. Mick, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive. Peter Carble and Jeremy Kyle in unison in pink. What can we do for you?
Hello, good afternoon, Jeremy and Peter. I've been listening with interest to conversation with Sarah Poin about illegal immigration. And I wish to make clear that I have never heard any politician, whether from Reform or the other complete showers who've been ruining the country for 20 years, I have never heard them say how they're going to get rid of illegal immigrants to Afghanistan, Syria, Sudan, Eritrea and other places, because the human rights lawyers will still be crawling all over it. And I don't believe that there will be mass deportations, even when Reform win the next election, which they will. I believe that Rupert Lowe and what he said would have done it. I don't believe Nigel Farage will do it. And I believe that the country will be left with hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, because by the time Nigel Farage wins an election, there will be another 500,000 of them here.
Mick, I have to say, actually, and I don't know, Pete and I have personal opinions on this. I couldn't agree more. I listen to politicians with views. You then hear about the influence about the machinations of Westminster and the blob and all that. To me, it's really simple. And Mark Francois from the Tory party was saying last night on the show, their position is going to be leaving the ECHR. There is no way in my right mind that we can stay in the ECHR.
Well, it's parts of the ECHR, but yeah.
Yeah, but Pete, but it was created 70 years ago. It hasn't been updated. It is having the PISS taken out of it to take the what's it out of the British people. And he's right. Unless something gets done. And it would take a politician, Mick, to take on the ECHR, to take on the blob, to take on the system. And I always bring it back to this, and people get really angry with me. You look across the pond, and the Orange Man baby isn't perfect, but he doesn't give a damn who gives it to him. And that's what we need, isn't it?
Yes. You're absolutely right. I mean, they're just serious action needs to be taken. Nothing is working so far. Smashing the gangs is a stupid policy that doesn't actually work. And even if, you know, another one, it's whack-a-mole, it doesn't make any sense. There has to be...
Is that when you go bang, bang,
yeah.
bang, 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 bang?
Has to be, it's whacking moles, yeah. It has to be a deterrent, and there is no current deterrent.
The deterrent is to make it less easy, not just to get here, but less nice when they do get here. Have you been to Whitley Bay?
No.
I have. Brian, you're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon. Peter Carbell is here in pink. What can we do for you?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Yeah, what it was, this disability benefits, right? People with mental health issues claim disability benefits, right? Obviously, their disability, if they want to call it disability, their disability is completely different from a physical disability, and therefore they should get a different amount from those who have got a genuine disability, if you get me drift. You know, like give them a component, say like 50 quid a month and nothing more, because, you know, in my opinion, people are just jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
On another station, a woman phoned up. She was a teacher and she said she had ADHD, and she said she was going to apply for PIP, and I'm thinking, you're a bloody teacher, you're on a good salary, why do you need to apply for PIP?
Can I apply for anything now I've got Crohn's disease? Maybe. Can I just say...
As usual, it's all about you, Jeremy.
No, Brian, I agree with you. I think there is an overriding view, I don't know what Pete thinks, that the bills are too high, the system is being taken advantage of, and we need to toughen it up and tighten it up. Of course, when you do something like that, the do-gooders will wring their hands and say, oh my God, this is outrageous.
Well, there's no issue, Jeremy. There's no issue. If you're genuinely disabled, that's fine. If you've got ADHD, that is, for most people, not everybody, but for most people, that is not a genuine... Well, it is a genuine thing.
No, it is a genuine condition, but you can still bloody work.
It's a thing, but you can work, certainly. And I think what we need to be really clear about is, can you work or can you not work? And that, I think...
Well, I'll go further, boys. There are 4 million people claiming benefits in this country, and all I ever hear about is I'm mentally ill or I'm disabled. I would say 2 million are and 2 million aren't, and I have a policy, I've said it for 10 years and people laugh at me. I'm told that we need illegal migrants to fill hospital porters' jobs or whatever. I'd get the Navy, I'd do what I've said and I'd stop that, and I would make the 2 million of the 4 million who are getting benefit for anxiety or because they're having a bad day or their left toe hurts, and I would make them work in the community and do those jobs for 2 reasons. One, it gets them out of that routine of doing nothing, gets something on the CV, helps them get towards a job, and it gives something back to the rest of society who are paying for them to slip further and further into doing nothing. It's perfect sense. We don't need to import people. Well, there are plenty of people on the dole who can do a job.
The issue for me is not people who are disabled necessarily.
No.
People who are genuinely disabled need our help. That shows we're compassionate to society. But there are a load of people sitting around on benefits who don't need to be, and we keep saying, well, we need to bring in immigration, legal immigration to deal with the skill set. Well, we've got to train those people up. We need a whole... The problem is, what happens is government tries to fix one bit of the system. They need to fix the whole system here. We need to fix education, we need to fix healthcare, we need to fix family policy, we need to do all sorts of things to make sure that people want to work. A cultural shift. I mean, there is Rishi Sunak talks about the dignity of work. Rishi Sunak coming to that's politics. Coming to work, help. I mean, I take pills every single day for mental health, right? Coming to work helps my mental health because I'm talking to friends, talking to colleagues. You know, well, you're not my friend, no. But talking to people, having a bit of banter in the office, and actually, you know, coming in and feeling useful in some way.
Yeah. Well, keep
telling myself that. Yeah.
Keep telling yourself that.
You're a great friend. You're so nice. You're
Get
so
salmonella again. This is Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
But is still here because we love him. Stephen Mitchell says that in the last 18 months of political interviews, you and Peter's interview with Sarah Poin was the most upbeat and positive she's ever heard. Or he's heard. Steve the Cornish Pirate. What does that mean? Do you know him?
He's from Cornwall and...
JB's in Aberdeenshire. Sarah Poin. Wonderful.
Jeremy, stop with the accent.
Future
Seriously.
Home Secretary and future Prime Minister can't wait. Thank you very much indeed. Hello to John McClain. Do you know who John McClain is?
I'm a diehard fan.
Very well done.
Yeah.
Why would you want to inflict
He's actually texted in earlier this afternoon, but he's now back with a vengeance.
Why? Why would you... It's just actually quite good for you.
Thank you.
At you. Why would you want to inflict the migrant crisis on British citizens who are living in the Falklands and the Orkneys? The best place to put them would be in uninhabited islands like St Kilda and Tarrant, maybe, says John in Long Lawford. Why don't we call a state of emergency to block the boats and make sure that there's a security risk and get it sorted? Hello to Andy. These lazy people on benefits who don't work, won't work. Get them to community service. Weed the pavements, litter picking, the grass verges. It's absolutely true. Why is that thought of as such a completely and utterly outrageous thing? Rachel says, Jezra, I'm confused. I helped a friend a few years ago apply for PIP. She was genuinely very unwell with complex issues. The PIP application was very intensive and lots of evidence had to be provided. These forms require hard medical evidence, not if you're an illegal migrant.
Let me tell you something, right?
Let me tell you something. You tell me now.
Franklin Roosevelt, okay, after the Great Depression, he became president of the United States. Loads of people didn't have jobs. And what he did was he had this thing called the New Deal. I'm not saying we should go to those lengths, but one of the weird jobs that people had, he said, right, it's far better to have something to do than nothing to do.
Yes.
I promise you, in Times Square in New York, he got people to hold balloons to scare away the pigeons. That's how much he believed that people getting up in the morning, going to work, doing a job, getting out of the house, meeting other people, doing something that was had some sort of purpose to it.
I have to wear a hat because being pooed on isn't great.
You don't want that. Apparently, good luck though.
Have you been to Somerset?
Yes.
So my parents both died. Philip, whereabouts in Somerset? Whereabouts are you in Somerset, Philip?
In Yeovil.
Yeovil. Lovely.
Yeah.
I once went to the Yeovil Court Hotel. This is a genuinely true story.
Genuinely true.
And I said to the man, can I have a suite, please? And he showed me these two rooms, and they were absolutely identical. And I said, what? He said, that's the suite. I said, why? It had a sofa at the bottom of the bed. That was the idea of a suite. Philip, we ain't got long. What you got for us, kiddo?
Well, first of all, if we get the MPs in, as it says on the poll, the latest poll, that Reform are going to win and win by a big number, and they can start getting things through, then I would stop the foreign aid to countries that wouldn't take the migrants back. I would also stop the legal aid, or the aid that's done at the moment in this country for foreigners when they come in, to say it's only for British people and not for foreign people, and do the thing that you said about the boats. So when they come in, you put them on a barge or whatever, and you take them somewhere else.
Not allowed to come here. Could not agree more. You're a Reform voter, are you, sir? Brilliant. 0344 499 1000. Voice notes. You ready for this? Craig on Lucy Connolly. Go.
Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words carry a 31-month sentence.
He's right. It's absolutely two-tier. Sally on welfare cuts. Go.
It might well be that the welfare budget should be cut by £5 billion, but I think they should look elsewhere. How much do the migrants cost us each year? Let them start there. Sally, Lincolnshire.
Jeremy, London. There's a story today. Dame Emma Thompson reckons it's good. She's looking. She basically should sex be available on the NHS. I don't know whether this means hookers on the NHS. You don't know about this?
I do know about this. But
taxpayer-funded orgasms. Rob on sex in the NHS. Go.
Hello, Jeff. Robin Starbridge here. Regarding sex on the NHS, can you imagine the politicians standing up in Parliament and going, "We need to go harder, faster, and further on sex in the NHS. Have a good day, mate. Brilliant."
My question is, would it be free at the point of use?
Wow.
Can I just say, Emma Thompson, the best bit about Emma Thompson...
Is there a best bit?
Is that she flew in first class.
Yes, $7,000.
From Los Angeles. She flew to London from Los Angeles for a climate protest, and she flew in first class. So she should be there.
A very good afternoon to Ian Haywood, my old mate. He says, taking the mickey out of Yeovil, what a disgrace. Listen, Yeovil's a lovely place.
It is.
Honestly. I'm not getting into that. It was a very, very lovely place. And if you do see, by the way, if you are heading to Somerset and you drive into Yeovil and you see grass in the middle of the dual carriageway, it's not a... Never mind. No, it's fine. He knows what I mean. Have you been to London? Have you been to London?
Yes,
Good.
I live in London.
Grace,
yes.
You've got 2 minutes on Talk Drive. Go.
I don't know what Emma Thompson's qualifications are in terms of medicine or health or anything else. As he pointed out, she was rather hypocritical in her flying around. I would agree with the cause of reducing climate change or fossil fuels to stop climate change personally, but I don't think that she necessarily cares given that she flew, and so I wouldn't take her word particularly seriously on any kind of advice. I personally think, as mad as it will sound, that we aren't just highly evolved animals. I think we have evolved, but I think we're more than that, and I think that personally, I think that there's a designer who's given people relationships for a deeper meaning than just getting off and having some kind of pleasure. I think that relationships are more significant and deep-rooted than just having what Emma Thompson suggests. And I think that, seriously, a massive part of the breakdown of our society is that we have been fed the lie that people ought to just be having sex as soon as possible with whoever possible, and it leads to people being heartbroken. It leads to relationships breaking up. You will know yourself from your previous work that a lot of people who have difficult relationship situations...
So you're going to say 3 divorces then? A bit harsh, but no.
I don't mean your personal life. I mean your program.
Yeah.
You know, people who have broken relationships can really suffer emotionally. The oxytocin released during sex bonds people to some extent, and so people who are fed the lie by our media that they ought to just be having sex all the time can end up suffering emotionally.
I agree. Grace, don't think you're rude. I've got to go. Thank you very much indeed. What do you feel about Grace's comment? Sex it should be about relationships.
It's up to the person, really. I mean, it's a personal thing how you view it. Certainly, strong relationships. However,
do you think it's time that we had a huge discussion about this?
No.
No, you don't think we should?
Not really.
Oh
no, Jeremy!
What?
Oh,
What?
That was dreadful.
It's great to have you on. In a minute, we've got a great part of the show, by the way, the Battle of the Lords. Lord Bethl, former Conservative Health Minister, against Lord Warner, former Labour Health Minister. This is about the strikes in the NHS. That'll be really exciting.
Are you asking who's the best Lord? Lord of the Flies, Lord of the Rings, or Lord of the Dance? Frankly, my dear, I do river dance. Give a damn.
Are you this funny when you do drive on your own?
Largely.
You are largely, yes, but are you funny?
Awful human being. Do you want me to take your mug to the dishwasher?
Listen, Salmonella boy,
what time? You're just going to put it in a blood pot.
I am, yeah. Tomorrow,
yes.
drive time.
Yes.
4 o'clock.
Yep.
Anything lined up? I mean, last week, by the way, can I just salute you on air? Fantastic. You'd interviewed Keir Starmer. I think you could have been a bit more forceful with him, I'm just being honest. But I mean, you were in his kitchen, and I thought the interview was fantastic.
It wasn't his kitchen, it was a woman's kitchen.
Was it not his kitchen?
No, it was one.
I thought it was.
Are you familiar with?
I thought that was 10 Downing Street's kitchen.
Has Kitchen Gate passed you by? I wrote about this in the Times yesterday. Has Kitchen Gate passed you by?
Why? What's happened with Kitchen Gate?
Oh, for goodness sake! Right, I'll send you the article.
Why was that? Did they write about the fact?
It was in a woman's kitchen in Staffordshire.
Why? How did you know her?
Well, I don't know her. It was
just walked into her kitchen and it was Keir Starmer went, I'm into the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister did in her house, but then there's a whole internet conspiracy thing that she was an actress, she's not, that it was my kitchen, that was Keir Starmer's kitchen.
Was it your kitchen?
No, it was her kitchen. Her name's Nicola.
How do you know? Not her, Nicola. Bloody hell. Anyway, drive time tomorrow will not be in a kitchen in Staffordshire with Keir Starmer.
Do you know what happens when in Nicola's kitchen? She puts the mugs in her dishwasher.
Do you know what happens in Jeremy Kyl's studio? Mugs get out. Right, 12 minutes to 6, back in 3.
you can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I
This
haven't
is
got
not one.
time. Don't tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people, then we can solve that problem like that.
Won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why? Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted, laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
And
this.
actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 9 minutes to 6, we're live across the UK. Delighted to welcome two lords. Oh, my lord. Former Conservative Health Minister, Lord Jim Bethl. Good afternoon, your lordship. How are you?
Yeah, very well, Jeremy. Very lovely to see you.
Jolly good. And also, Lord Norman Warner, former Labour Health Minister. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thanks very much.
Gentlemen, this story today is guaranteed to send me through the roof. NHS doctors excited about strikes, say the BMA leaders. Dr Ross Newalt, probably can pronounce that, the co-chair of the Resident Doctors Committee, say the vast majority of doctors are excited to go again as the union is prepared to call another wave of prolonged NHS walkouts. About 50,000 new doctors who want to be known now as resident doctors are being balloted for 6 months of strikeout. Jim Bethl, just to start with, what do you think patients think about this again? I thought they'd been given a rise when the Labour Party got into power.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, my strong experience is that doctors are not excited to be on strike. Most of them hugely regret these actions, find that the BMA massively overstates the case, and hugely wish that they could help to modernise and improve their standards without this kind of confrontational attitude. And patients must be being driven mad to have more appointments cancelled, services hit really hard, and the taxpayer is wondering where all their money's gone. 20 million went into the health service at the beginning of this parliament, and I'm not sure there's anything to show for it.
Well, many people would argue, Lord Warner, that one of the biggest problems of the NHS is it gives help and treatment to people who don't pay into the system. We've got a major problem with that in this country. What do you make of this headline that doctors, the vast majority, say the co-chair of the Resident Doctors Committee, are excited to go again? That's not caring about your patients, is it?
No, but I think what we've got now is a situation where both sides, the government and the BMA, keep going down the same old tram lines. And what we'll have is another repeat of what we've had before. And I think the government needs to actually think about trying to change the terms of the debate. If I was a minister now, I would be starting not to talk about generalised pay increases of X% of whatever. I'd be starting to talk about incentives to surgeons, for example, to actually improve their productivity. I'd be starting to talk about redistributing some of the money in particular specialties from one part of the country to the other. So you could incentivise doctors to go to under-doctored areas. The government is on a losing wicket if it continues to have a discussion with the BMA, a very smart trade union, on the same grounds that they had before. That would just go on for months.
Are
So
they a
you
smart?
need
Are
to
they a
change
smart?
the dialogue.
Are they a smart trade union?
Oh, I think they're much smarter than you realise. You may not like what they do, but they're pretty effective at actually ringing the withers of actual governments, left or right centre.
Jim, British people are struggling in many ways. People don't like this, but it's true. There are illegal migrants into this country, seeing a GP within 24 hours in their 4-star hotels, and many Brits are waiting months, if not years, for an appointment with their GP. They're some having to go abroad for treatment and for operations. I think we're at a very interesting moment in the history of this country. I repeat what I said to you at the beginning. I thought when Labour came in and there was a 22 billion black hole, they gave a pay rise immediately to doctors. So why do these people via the BMA, whoever, think that the British people are going to swallow this when they're struggling?
I agree. Listen, the Guild of Former Health Ministers has got this one right. Norman's correct. What we need is a modernisation conversation about how the professionals are going to grow into the 21st century, being incentivised to do things more productively, and to answer that question from the public and from the voter and from the taxpayer about how they can get value for money out of the health system. Because you're right, people feel it's unfair that they put so much into it and aren't getting stuff back. They like doctors. Doctors work hard. They do a bloody difficult job, and not many people could do it for them. But they do wonder whether the whole system is so old-fashioned and creaking and really there to serve the vested interest.
I've always thought that the NHS is on somewhat of a pedestal, and people need to not look through rose-tinted spectacles. I agree with both of you, and say, look, it's 2025 with an ageing population, a massively larger population than we ever imagined we would have, and we need to change. Now, gentlemen, there are serious moments on this show and there are light-hearted moments on this show, so I expect you both to involve yourselves with the next subject. Emma Thompson, in her latest role, has been talking about how sex is good for you all. In fact, it's led her to announce today that she believes that I don't know what the hell this means. Sex should be free and available on the NHS. Now, we're not quite sure, Jim, what that means. Whether that means you can, phone up your doctor, 46 in the queue at 8 a.m, and when they get through, you say, I need an escort. I've no idea. But Emma Thompson, genuinely, look at Lord. What? This is genuinely
no, she's right.
What?
She is 100% right, and there's good clinical evidence to support her. Listen, most people, when they're in the GP surgery, they don't need a pill or an injection or surgery. They need to approach their life in a different way, and that might mean wild swimming or eating more carrots, or having the cardiovascular and musculoskeletal benefits of really good sex. And a lot of people's underlying health would be improved enormously by some emotional intimacy and some energetic exercise.
What did you say? What?
Cardiovascular, gets the blood moving.
Yeah.
Endocrinological, so that the immune system is working, and musculoskeletal, a little bit of stretching and getting into...
Sorry, Lord Warner, is it me? How does Jim Bethl think we're going to offer free sex on the NHS? We can't even afford an appointment right now. What are we going to offer?
Well, I'm looking forward to the way in which we advise GPs on how to take a case history when the woman or man comes in to meet them, and what sort of prescription they're going to write. I mean, it seems to me that Emma Thompson is looking to become a stand-up comedian, and that she's looking for a new career change.
I couldn't agree more. But Jim, how's it going to work then? I mean, you're saying that cardiovascular and skeletal is good for a good old bonk or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, that shouldn't be on the NHS. Bloody nanny state.
Well, Jeremy, the serious
how do you
point
provide it? I've got 1 minute. How do you provide sex on the NHS?
Well, you give a prescription for rubbing oils and for dim lights and roses. Much in the same way.
Dim lights, roses and rubbing oils?
Of course. Much in the same way you might give a prescription for a bag of carrots or a pair of swimming trunks. These can be much more impactful than antibiotics and chemicals. Seriously, most people would benefit from exercise, emotional engagement, and some kind of better food. Those three things address a hell of a lot of the problems health.
Right, I'm off. I've got to go now. I've got a queue for my doctors tomorrow morning. I'm going to order some rubbing oils and some scented candles and a bag of carrots, but I'm not going into it. Lord Jim Bethl and Lord Norman Warner, thank you very much indeed. Live and exclusive across the United Kingdom. How do you get sex on a prescription on the NHS? Hello, is that Marjorie? Yeah, I'd like some rubbing oil, please. While you're at it, don't forget about a bag of carrots. The news at 6 is next on Talk Drive.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humphrey Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's
a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, final hour of Drive. Oh, that's a weird camera angle. What's that in there? That's all got a bit... Woo! Hello, how are you? Sorry about that. That's just... Honestly, I did that for down a bit. We go down a bit, yeah? Is it... Woo! It's weird. Been on television all my life. Never quite looked... Oh, there we go. Listen, welcome to Drive. Brendan O'Neill, Chief Political Writer of Spite, in a jiffy jam. What did I say that in a jiffy? 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. Text to 87222. Whatever you want to say. Stuart in Perthshire says, you and Peter Cardwell should do a full show together once a week. You do make it a laugh. We try. Barry says, sorry, Jess, don't agree with you about sending migrants to the Falklands. I didn't bloody well go down there to get it be turned into a dumping ground. Interesting opinion. Jez, we have to do two things if the Navy won't stop this invasion. Do you remember when somebody used the word invasion and everybody was like, oh my God, this is outrageous? Not any longer. Stop giving expensive legal aid to them. None at all. This is from Max in Bristol. Come out of the ECHR immediately. We are not safe in our own country, allowing in potential criminals. We should declare a state of emergency. What the hell has happened to us? This is interesting, see, because that's sort of email 5 years ago, people would have gone, he's mad, imprison him. Now they're going, no, he's right. The man whose seat Sarah took should have been sent to prison before Lucy Connolly. Liam in Warrington, Jody note, had his 10-week prison sentence, for assault suspended for 2 years after an appeal at Chester Crown Court. That's Mike Amesbury. Caroline Bainbridge, Keir Starmer's not smashing the GANs, he's smashing his integrity, his reputation and the hearts of the UK. I don't think he's got any integrity or a reputation. I think he's smashing the United Kingdom. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Always fun listening to you both. Watching from Vienna with a nice glass of wine in the hand. You are doing a great job. Where else would the wine be? Mark's in North Wales. The migrants broke the law breaking into the country, and then we now find that they're breaking the law by working illegally whilst we all pay their bills. Sure, this is grounds to round them up and deport them. You'd think so, but I don't think there's any incentive to do so. Keith says, Jez, great show. Another idiot Tory MP. He's talking about Graeme Stuart earlier, is he? Ooh, on your show, who blames everybody who voted Remain for putting Labour in power, thinking only Tories and Labour have a right to govern this country. Stuart says, I hate the way Tories like Graeme Stuart just keep listing Rwanda, which was never tried, and COVID, which so badly handles their excuses. We know lockdown and furlough did nothing, but get the country into debt. The vulnerable should have been protected, and everyone else should have gone about business as usual until we had herd immunity. The Tories are toast. Hi, Jez. Oh, your Tory MP is disingenuous because they froze the tax bans and fiscally dragged loads of ordinary working class people into the 40% tax. John in Wolves. Now, 0344 499 1000. Loads in the news. Labour's potential revolt on the backbenches against that welfare cut of $5 billion. The continuing story highlighted brilliantly by the Sun newspaper about how illegal migrants have jobs with takeaway companies within 5 minutes of landing. Lucy Connolly still languishing in a jail. Many people saying, are you ready, Ames? Many people saying that if you ask nowadays, what do you think of the Labour government, the answer you get...
They don't know what the they're doing.
I think this is very true. Just to prove that she's now right on it. Sorry, what do people think of the Labour government?
They don't know what the they're doing.
We say a very good evening to the legend is Brendan O'Neill, Chief Political Writer at Spiked. How are you, sir?
Hi, Jeremy. How you doing?
Didn't you love it when Trump used the F-bomb? I loved it, mate, didn't you?
So good. I loved it. I've watched it about 100 times.
We'll talk about free sex on the NHS at the end. Where do you want to... Well, let's start with the main news story of the week, really, which was that Sun's investigation, the discovery that, you know, that there are thousands of Channel migrants illegally in this country who, by the way, could be processed into getting a job within 10 minutes when they arrive here in their 4-star hotel and they've seen a GP and been given a Monzo bank card. They can go and work and they can park their bike outside the migrant hotel, you know, like an expensive electric bike. They can put their jackets on and they can go off to work and come back. They get cash in hand. I said yesterday with Harry Cole when this shot out the news sources, Brendan, I'm into optics. If I'd been the government, not that this lily-livered lot would do it, I'd have taken those doors in at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning with the immigration services and the police. I'd have dragged those people and deported them, and I would have dragged, personally, those 5 CEOs to Downing Street and levied huge fines against them. You will not tell me that these companies don't know when they're giving cash unless, and this isn't a conspiracy, there is somebody else who they are being paid, and then they're paying the people. They've got to know what's going on, haven't they?
You know, what you've just proposed, you know, kick down the doors, get them out of the country, or make them answer for themselves, that wouldn't have even been controversial 10 years ago. That's what nations do. They go after people who are here illegally, and certainly if they're working illegally, and they say, what are you doing here? Australia does it, France does it, Britain, for some reason, no longer does it. You know, we've now reached a stage, Jeremy, where I don't think we should even just wring our hands over the government and say they're useless and everything else. They're complicit in this. The longer they refuse to do anything about it, the longer they refuse to get a handle on our borders, to stop the boats, to stop people working illegally and undercutting the jobs and the wages of ordinary Brits, the longer they do that, that makes them complicit. They know it's happening. They refuse to act. That makes it entirely their fault.
When you say refuse to act, I mean, I've sat here for 3 years and I've had MPs, commentators, all sorts of people say to me, they don't want to act because they don't have the answer. I'm not an intelligent man, but to me it's really simple. If you spent time telling the British public that we need these people to do the jobs, they're not all doctors and nurses, that's B, right? We need to do the jobs that, frankly, the British people who are unemployed don't want to do. Well, tough. Get the Navy, that's what I'd do. I'd have 3 massive liners decked out. I wouldn't allow anybody to put a foot on British soil. They would be processed immediately on board. And if there is any part of them that shouldn't come, they are taken to a detention centre, which is built in a place where it's not nice and it's not warm and they're not going to get a hotel. And sure as eggs is bleeding eggs, right, that message would get through very quickly. But more than that, said it earlier on the show, love your take on this, 4 million people claiming benefits. We'll talk about the Labour Party and benefits cuts in a minute. They're not all mentally ill, they're not all disabled, and many who aren't should be forced to get off their backsides and give something back to the community and the country that is paying them. They should be made to do the jobs that apparently only illegal migrants can do. That makes sense to me and saves everybody money. I don't understand it.
You know, Jeremy, just think about the topsy-turvy world we live in right now, where healthy young Brits are told that they are too mentally ill to work, or too weak to work, or too soft to work, so they should stay home and we'll give them a bit of money, while at the same time, young illegal immigrants are coming in and doing the jobs that young people would normally have done. You know this, I know this. When we were kids, from the ages of 15 right through to my early 20s...
I nearly said on your bike. That doesn't sound right, but it's true.
Yeah, I had all these sorts of jobs. I was delivering papers. I was working in shops. People had to work. You needed work in order to get a bit of pocket money. You certainly weren't going to get it from the government, and you didn't want it from the government.
No.
But, you know, it's a chicken and egg situation. Is it really the case that young Brits don't want to do these jobs? Or is it more that, the more that we bring in these illegal migrants to do the jobs because they're cheap and easy for these companies to use, the more young Brits think, well, I don't have to do anything because it's all being done for me?
I think there's two ways. I think there is apathy nowadays. I think the companies are complicit. I think the government is complicit. But I do think that I'm sorry, I think there's a privileged generation. There's an entitled generation. And you're right. Listen, kid, we had to go to work. I earned $1.65 an hour stacking geese bananas at M&S from the age of 16 and hated my 8-hour shift on a Saturday. But that's what you had to do, because in my house, if you didn't, and my kids are exactly the same. My 16-year-old has started working in a restaurant kitchen. Comes about stinking of fish and chips, but he's earned his money and he's learning the value of money. That's in essence the truth. And I'm sorry, I think we make it too easy again. And I'm all for a society that helps people who can't help themselves. But the British people are now fed up to the back teeth of helping people who don't need help, but they're taking advantage. And that's another loophole. Let's talk about this welfare cut, because this was sort of a flagship policy of Starmer. This $5 billion cut has absolutely rankled with the rank and file, I should say. A major revolt brewing. Over 120, we're hearing 108 MPs and 12 ministers will vote against the government. This is short of a year with an astounding majority. This man is facing a major revolt, and this will damage him. I mean, I'm not interested in Sadiq Khan. He's always going to get involved. But we're talking a massive, massive moment, aren't we, in his premiership?
You know, I feel we are. Absolutely we are. This is huge. And Keir Starmer is trying to play it down, but that's not washing with anyone.
No.
But I do feel torn on this issue, because on the one hand, I'm really thrilled that there is this challenge to Keir Starmer's power. I'd love to see him toppled. He's useless. He's an idiot. No one really likes him. So that's good. But the other side of me thinks these MPs in Labour opposing these welfare reforms are, if I may say so, they're the scum of the earth. Because I tell you what, this welfare system that we have at the moment is incredibly harmful to this country. It is incredibly harmful to working class communities in particular, because what's happened with sickness benefits in particular is that millions of healthy potential workers have been put out to pasture by the establishment, who says to them, you're useless, you're rubbish, we don't need anything from you. It is the biggest trick ever played on working class Brits for a long, long time. So the opponents of the welfare reforms, by the way, the welfare reforms don't go far enough.
No.
But the fact that people are opposing even these reforms, I think actually they probably deserve to lose.
Very interesting. You've summed it up brilliantly, because I'm a bit like that. I want him to lose, but I don't think it goes far enough. And I think it's very much like so much now in this country, mate, where what in the past passed for helping people, which I think we were all very happy to do, has been transposed now into systems that have so many loopholes that so many people are taking advantage. And even that's been happening. But now the downside is that those very services are becoming so swamped, for want of a better phrase, that the very people who pay into it and expect to get it, be the NHS, are being screwed. I mean, I told the story yesterday. I met a woman, came to do a job on the house, self-employed, and she was telling me she had cancer last year, terribly scared, single mum with 2 teenage boys, never asked for a penny, went and asked, and they went, no, you don't, you earned that last year, you don't consider. So she spent 6 months living with her parents while she had chemo, because they wouldn't give her a penny. But you can get all of that when you jump on a boat. It doesn't make sense. I don't even understand that. It doesn't. To me, that's. We can rant forever, you and I, but the British people's voice is about to be heard, and that's just unacceptable, I think.
It's sickening. It's truly sickening that Brits who need our help, Brits who've paid in and then they hit a brick wall or they have a hard time, they really need our help. They often don't get it, or they don't get it quickly enough. Whereas, as you say, illegal migrants come here, they get a hotel room, they get an illegal job, they get a wage while also getting handouts. Also, young Brits, as you say, who ought to be working but aren't because they either convinced themselves or they've been convinced by other people that they can't work. They're mentally incapacitated, they're physically weak, they're not working either, and they're getting money they shouldn't be getting. So it's completely unfair on people who actually work for a living. That's the backbone of this country. The people who get up every single morning, traipse to work. Sometimes they like their job, sometimes they don't like them, but they do them out of a sense of self-respect, moral responsibility, and because they want a nice wage in their pocket. Those people are being screwed by this pincer movement that is giving money to people who aren't sick but that claim they are, and to illegal migrants who shouldn't be in this country.
Couldn't agree more. 3 other stories. Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform, highlighting the incredibly unpalatable story about Lucy Connolly. We all know it by now on this station. The lady who, after the Southport riots, wrote some pretty unwise stuff online. It was only up there for 3 hours. She admits it was unwise. She took it down. Jailed for 31 months, just shy, nearly 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, for hurty words. Personally, I've said it all the time. I'd have made her do some community service within the Muslim community. I thought what she said was abhorrent. However, underlined 50 million times, she's in prison, and we've got paedophiles like Hugh Edwards walking the streets, and we've got illegal migrants who create grooming, well, rape gangs and rape young white girls who are living, the story this week, still living in the same bleeding street, that bloke, the bloke who got jailed in 2014. Completely and utterly wrong. I cannot believe that Lucy Connolly is still languishing in jail. That is a stain on this government, one of the biggest by a mile in my mind.
It's disgusting. And as you say, I have never heard anyone defend what she wrote. Not one person.
No,
and I'm sure she
can't. You can't.
No, you can't. It was horrible. But she deleted it very quickly. She said she wrote it in the heat of the moment. She clearly regrets it. She should not be in prison. That's the bottom line. And the more I think about it, the more I think it's true that she's a political prisoner, in the sense that the government is making an example of her.
Yeah.
What the government is essentially saying, and the judge kind of said this in his sentencing, they're essentially saying, look, there are certain views you can't hold. There are certain things you can't think. There are certain ways you can't behave. And we're going to prove that by making an example of this woman, by locking her up for 31 months for writing a sentence on the internet. That is really genuinely disgusting. And the way she's been treated in jail, the fact that she hasn't been allowed out to visit any of her family, it's very tough for her in there by all accounts. This is a miscarriage of justice of the kind we haven't seen in a long time, and someone's got to take action and sort out this horrible situation.
Good for Richard Tice of Reform to highlight it. You know, Prime Minister Keir Starmer insists the judiciary must be free to act on incitement to violence, whilst Reform UK is calling it a free speech crisis and a sign, as we all agree, of a two-tier justice system. 2 stories to finish. I'm quite shocked by this. In fact, it made me a bit weak at the knees, though. The BBC have told staff, you've seen this, they must represent unpalatable and offensive views. Those unpalatable and offensive views are the ones that we have, that this station has, that the majority of the United Kingdom has. It's almost like the BBC is begrudgingly saying, well, you know, we'll have a few people to the right of centre on, but it doesn't mean we believe in this rubbish. How imbalanced is that for a state broadcaster? I've never heard anything so appalling in my life.
You know, when I first saw this headline, I thought, oh, you know, maybe the BBC's coming to its senses.
Yeah.
Maybe it's moving on from cancel culture. You know, that's good. But then I read it and I thought, no, the BBC is insane. Because if you look at some of the examples that are being given of unpalatable views that the BBC might now allow, people are quoting Justin Webb. Because Justin Webb on the Today programme got in trouble last year or the year before because he referred to trans women as biological males. Trans women are biological males. That's the whole point of being a trans woman. You're someone who was a man who now identifies as a woman. So he was punished. He was wrapped across the knuckles by the BBC bosses for telling the truth, for stating a biological fact that every 5-year-old in this country knows to be true. So that's what the BBC is talking about, that kind of thing. It's basically saying, listen, guys, we are now going to let you tell the truth. We're now going to let you say that men are men. So let's not forget how completely insane the BBC went over the past few years.
I mean, I've always believed that your state broadcasters should be balanced. That actually, you know, I worked in commercial television, but you should give both sides. But they blatantly don't, and it's that sneery, begrudging stuff that's the typical Islington BBC Labour Party rubbish. Now, to finish on a light-hearted note, legend that is Brendan O'Neill. Finally today we're asking, should sex be available on the NHS? That's right, Dame Emma Thompson reckons it's that good for you. There's a film that she's done. This woman genuinely has come out and said sex should be free on the NHS. Now, I don't quite know what that means. Do you? I mean, I honestly had the ex-health minister, Lord Jim Bethl, just say, well, it means getting things like rubbing oil and a candle on prescription, rubbing oil. I mean, the other one went, I don't know how that's good. What are you ordering, a prostitute or an escort? How the hell does that work? Can I have a prescription for an escort, please? I need a pole dancer next Thursday. What's that all about? Go and get laid yourself.
Absolutely. I don't trust the NHS to get me a doctor's appointment, never mind to get me off. You know, the NHS is an untrustworthy organisation. It can't even do what it's supposed to do, which is make us well when we're not well. And the idea that it could provide for our sexual needs as well, I find that so creepy. Really, really.
Joanna from Salisbury says, sex on the NHS, no bloody West Street. It'll be a sex toy with an eco battery supplied by Ed Miliband, which is quite funny. And Sharon says, I've just switched on and heard the end of the debate about sex on the NHS. I've never heard anything so bloody ridiculous in my life. If Emma Thompson wants it prescribed, perhaps she might want to fund this new service herself. If she wanted some attention, she certainly achieved it. We shouldn't forget that she's the one who flew first class on a gas-guzzling jet for $7,000 from LA to stand there with Just Stop Oil and pretend she gives the toss. Do you know what I mean? Another lovely. But yeah, free sex. I don't know. We all know sex is good for you. It costs quite a lot of money, though. I didn't mean that as it sounded. I think I know what I meant. Brendan, thank you, my friend. It is always an absolute pleasure to have you on. Brendan O'Neill, our weekly Wednesday contributor, chief political writer of Spite. What is it? 6:21. Busy show. Still to come this hour, by the way. We'll talk to Alex West, News Editor of The Sun, about tomorrow's paper. We've got Simon Diggins, military analyst. We'll talk about the latest in the Middle East. Somebody said to me that the Labour Party don't know what they're doing. Somebody's just asked me this question. Do you know why the BBC makes so many mistakes?
They don't know what the they're doing.
Let's do that again. Do you know why the BBC makes so many mistakes?
They don't know what the they're doing.
Talk Drive!
unfortunately, we had just a few months ago, several times, Putin using language suggesting that if Ukraine didn't give in, or if Europe didn't stop helping Ukraine, do remember we have tactical nuclear weapons, so we have to be sure we can't be subject to what I would call nuclear blackmail.
Yeah.
It's where a country like Russia, with these small nuclear weapons, that can kill thousands of people, says, unless you do what I demand, I'll start using them against you. So this is about deterrence, and I think it's a sensible decision.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:25. Kev is here with his political asylum from 7 o'clock. Petri Hoskins from 10. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, The Ledge is back. Mike Graham as Morning Glory. Utterly fantastic, as ever, Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. Jez, the Tories don't want to bring the Labour government down, because if we had a general election now, the Tories couldn't possibly win. They'd be in about 3rd or 5th place. Absolutely. Hello to Jerry in Cardiff. Sean in Bridlington. I got off at a summer season once then. Alex is in Liverpool. I want to hear a Tory MP say Boris is wrong for Partygate. We all do. I don't want to talk about COVID. Oh, my God. I'm sick, honestly. Let's move on. Gina from Essex. It's so frustrating to hear a Tory MP having a go at Labour for giving away the Chagos Islands when they started negotiations in 2022. Very interesting. Dave Clifford. Ooh. It's infuriating that this government turns a blind eye to everything regarding illegal migrants. Here's a hotel with 3 meals a day, a free Wi-Fi, free TV licence, easy access to a free dentist and anything to do with the NHS, and you can do cash-in-hand jobs in front of everyone. If a UK homeless person tried to enter these hotels, they'd be turned away. It's bloody disgraceful. It absolutely is. To London. Georgina, good evening. How are you?
I'm absolutely fabulous, darling. How are you?
Not bad for a balding, nearly 60-year-old has-been with Crohn's disease now.
Oh, don't talk such rot.
That's what I've got. Got diagnosed yesterday.
You look great. And as for the Crohn's disease, that's nothing that you can't handle. So don't give it a second thought.
Thanks,
anyway,
my darling. I don't know. I don't feel great, but of course I will. Listen, let me tell you something. You can deal with that stuff. It's easy. There are many people suffering. It's fine. Deal with it. I've just got to get a nappy. Crack on.
Get a grip on it. Get a grip on it.
I can't get a grip on it, mate. Listen, if I try and tense, we're in trouble. Crack on.
Right. Listen, I not only love my flag, Jez, I am my flag, and I'm vehemently protective of both my country and the individual population within its borders. And this is what's lacking with our present Prime Minister. There is no pride, concern for either the country or its people. You know, with this Labour government, when the going gets tough, Labour jumps onto the back foot. Nothing worth having is easy to achieve. You know, they've got to learn to stand and fight for our country.
I don't think I mean, we've said this so many times on this station, darling. I don't think they are. I think they're globalists. I think they're more interested in... They are more interested in bloody making sure they follow some obscure law or some human rights group or something that doesn't make sense. I don't believe that they put the people, the British people, as their number one priority.
They're not, Jez. And the thing is, Keir Starmer's terrified of losing the Muslim vote. Well, if I was Keir Starmer, I'd be more frightened of how the British people are feeling at the moment. Let me tell you, Keir Starmer has to think of the overall welfare of this country, not about the welfare benefits of people who choose not to get up off their bottoms and work. You know, I'm not talking about PIP payments for genuinely disabled people because they need their benefits. I'm talking about the lazy so-and-sos who'd rather sit at home and get paid for doing nothing.
Completely agree. Mate, I completely agree with you. And all those sorts of discussions and all those sorts of feelings that were labelled unpalatable and wrong for years, they're not. It's the truth. This country, because it's skint, because of COVID to a degree, but because of the cost of living crisis, because food's 3 or 4 times what it was, because energy bills have gone through the roof, people are going, hold on, I'm doing everything correctly and I'm being still further screwed. Before you go, because I know you've got a sense of humour, I'd love your take on this. You've heard this story that Dame Emma Thompson has said that sex is so good for you that it should be free on the NHS. I mean, I don't know whether we're talking about taxpayer-funded orgasms. You've heard this story. Jane says Sex on the NHS, I'd be ever so bloody grateful. And
Do you know what? It'd be great if we could get health service on the NHS, never mind anything else. You can't even get an appointment, so she's living in cat cloud cuckoo land.
What about Anna in Surrey? Listen to this, Anna in Surrey, this is brilliant. So if I go to my GP and say that I no longer want sex with my husband, can I get a prescription for sex with a much younger person, and that's okay, is it? I'm just asking for a friend.
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine that? What would you ask? What would you say to the doctor? I'm as a man. Can you get me an escort, please? What would you be? So some MP or ex-MP said you should be asking for rubbing oil and a candle.
Well, the MPs will be queuing up, let me tell you. If they think that's going free, there will be a never-ending stream of MPs going to the doctors, and I bet they get appointments.
I agree. What are you cooking tonight, then?
Well, Little Heart's just had his fish fingers, SpaghettiOs, and I cooked him a burger. We don't do Deliveroo or Just Eat. We don't do that. So
Why is that? Oh, yes, because an illegal migrant will probably arrive at your front door.
Well, you know what, Jez? At the end of the day, when I order something from fast food Deliveroo, the last thing I want is to be face down in the Axe Minister. So, you know what? I'll keep my door closed and do my own cooking. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you, Georgina. We love her. 6:30. We're live across the UK. Obviously, against the light-hearted stuff, the world has been watching with bated breath and then sort of resignation at what's going on. Britain's talking about a security view. We're going to buy planes, although you can break into one of our places with planes like those idiots from Palestine Action did quite easily. Obviously, we had the situation earlier in the week. Iran and Israel and the US got involved. Delighted now to talk to Simon Diggins, military and defence analyst. How are you, my friend?
Jerry, very well indeed. I do feel like the lecturer who's put on after lunch, though, after sex on the NHS. But very good.
Well, listen, let's ask you. What do you think about free sex on the NHS, Diggins? Do you dig it?
Absolutely. Wouldn't it be wonderful? But I'm not sure. I don't know how serious Dame Emma was, but it's been taken serious. But I think it's an interesting. It still serves an interesting proposition, Minister.
I'm old-fashioned. People get it online nowadays. Now you can get it at the doctors. We used to have to get it ourselves. Right, Simon. It was an extraordinary show on Monday, and you're an expert. So I sort of was doing the show for 20 minutes, and then these missiles were launched at the US base at Al-Udeid, I think, in Qatar. And for about 2 hours, I think everybody thought World War III was about to begin. And then sort of by 10 to 7, they'd responded. Nobody had been hurt. Then we found out that they'd given them a 2-hour warning. Trump said, thank you very much, and everybody got on with their lives. My thoughts at that moment were, and I'd love this from you as a military expert, this was tokenism, wasn't it? The Americans probably saw what they were doing and saw the rockets come over. It didn't hurt anybody, Bob's your uncle. But then, of course, we had this extraordinary outburst from Trump, because he then announces, there's going to be a ceasefire, and then wakes up in the morning and they're already raining bombs at each other, the Israelis and the Iranians, and he says, these guys don't know what the F they're doing. What is going on? And to give me some sort of idea of the madness.
Well, it is. I think there's the two things. The first is I think there's a very strong element, as you say, kind of performative element about this. This is kind of, when people talk about the theatre of war, it's not quite what they mean, but this is basically what we do. We'll do something, another side will respond to it, and then they'll try and judge what it means. There's also been this rather strange kind of back channel of communication that's been running the whole time, even while the attacks were going in between the Iranians, the Americans, and no doubt the Israelis. They've not known me of direct. Basically telling them what we're doing and when we're going to be doing it. So we're getting information now, though Trump disputes it, that the Iranians had a good sense that they were likely to be attacked, and that we know, for example, that the enriched uranium may well have left one of their nuclear enrichment sites. So it may not be as effective as it was gone. The other side, and I think you asked what's going on, the other side of the phrase is that old adage that 90% of diplomacy is actually psychology. So what we're really dealing with is the psychology of Donald Trump. And what does he do? He wants to be centre stage. He wants to be the man who's calling the shots, left and right, and everyone works to him. So I think we've got these two things going on. War as a kind of conflict, which is not only done with weapons but done with talking. And then you've got Donald Trump right at the very centre of it.
Let's talk about domestically. Last week, I wasn't here on Thursday or Friday. I think this happened one of those days. This disgusting group, which will now be prescribed, Palestine Action, attacked 2 Voyager aircraft in Brides Norton. These are aircraft, I think, that you actually used for the royal family, but they caused, they think, £35 million worth of damage. Hamish de Bretton Gordon came on and he said, I'm going to say something to you all. The language I've heard on talk is that it was vandalism. It wasn't vandalism, it was sabotage. And sabotage carries with it terrorist charges. Would you agree with that?
Totally. This was terrorism. The intention was to try and frighten us from being involved in, not least of which the Palestine Action, we understand, has been partly funded through an Iranian sort of shadow group as well. They've got money coming from Iran. These are terrorists, and there's got to be an absolute hard line drawn and say this kind of behaviour is completely unacceptable. We've been very tolerant about some of the demonstrations that have taken place, which have seen awful things being said and done in London, and this is the next stage along that line. And frankly, we need to draw a line in the sand. That is the one that's unacceptable. I would also like to see the IRGC proscribed. The IRGC, the arm of this fascist theocratic state that sits in Iran, is not a proscribed organisation in this country. I mean, that's just absolutely absurd. They're the people who organised the killing of 136 British soldiers in Iraq during when we were fighting there. They're the ones who organised terrorism overseas in Lebanon, in Gaza and elsewhere, and also internally are the chief propagators of the repression inside Iraq, and yet they're not prescribed in this country. Other Western countries have reasons completely beyond me. We haven't done that either. So we really need to change, Jeremy. We need to be very clear about our values, and those who do not follow our values, I'm afraid, they're beyond the pale, and we deal with them accordingly.
Couldn't agree more. And also, I think the other point to make about that is, what does it say about how easy it is to get into... I mean, I saw something on the BBC, and I never watched the BBC. I was walking past. I mean, the fence looked like a sort of fence around a football pitch and a council estate. I mean, this is supposed to be a military base, for Christ's sake. What does that say about what our military bases and our military in its entirety has become after successive governments have cut, because it's been the easy target. And now we're going, oh, my God, the world is actually in a precarious position. We need to wise up.
Yeah, it goes from the security of our bases, which you recall during the terrorist eras were very secure and very difficult to get into, through to much wider security. We've seen over the last 4 to 5 years with the fighting, the campaigns between Russia and Ukraine and in Israel at the moment, the equivalent of an Iron Dome, basically protecting their people from missiles. We have absolutely nothing like that. We are an island nation. We have absolutely no ability to give ourselves any kind of defence like that as well. So it goes from the security of our bases through to the security of our country. We have been utterly neglectful, and I literally pray and hope, please God, do not test us at the moment. We're simply not ready. Not that anything the government's going to do at the moment is going to get us ready in the short time we need. We are in a very difficult place.
Let's finish with Starmer at The Hague, because he doesn't want to be here, obviously, because he doesn't want to be in in England because he'd be criticised. But Starmer in The Hague, Simon, part of a NATO meeting whereby they're all now going to say, we're going to guarantee 5% of GDP on defence. This is, and people don't like this, this is absolutely, in my opinion, down to Donald Trump, who said, listen, I'm not going to spend my life or my presidency spending money when you lot don't make a difference. Now, whether I believe Starmer or not, or NATO, let's talk about Starmer. We hear that they're buying 12 F-35 fighter jets. These are supposed to be on aircraft carriers, but we haven't got any aircraft carriers, so God knows where they're going to put them. Do you believe this government is serious about spending this money, or is this just kicking the can down the road?
It's hard to tell on that last one. I mean, I think the reality of life is that the 2.6% we get to by 2027 is far too little, far too late. I think the idea of getting some kind of tactical nuclear weapons, though, does have some common sense to it, because we find ourselves in a position whereby, awful though the prospect would be of a nuclear war, we only had one option, which was strategic. So Putin, particularly, and the Russians have got a different nuclear doctrine, which is they see smaller weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, essentially as kind of a very large battlefield conventional weapon, and we had no means of deterring them against using that, except by threatening, probably very incredibly, the use of our strategic weapons. So I think that fills that gap is there. But these these half promises that things are going to get better by 2035 just aren't good enough. We know that Russia will be ready to attack a NATO country within 3 to 5 years. And my maths isn't great, but that's not 2035.
Really, really great, Si. You speak the language that I understand, which is very rare on this station on this subject. But thank you so much indeed. Simon Diggins, military and defence analyst on Drive. 21 minutes to sit. Where's the day gone? 7 even. We're here until 7 o'clock. 0344 499 1000. So much to talk about. We'll take your calls. We'll also talk about what's in the sun tomorrow. We're coming back in 3 on Talk Drive.